The ground was trembling, the air tasted of dust, and the sky was blotted out by the dust and debris. 16-year-old Sasuke Uchiha felt a warm sensation spreading through his body, yet it didn't lessen the pain he was feeling as he lay on the ground, dazed and bruised. Exhaustion and pain was battering his body. His black hair, matted and dirty, draped his face, hiding his left eye and bruised cheek. A small hole that was no bigger than a coin was going through his chest. The gray high-collared short-sleeved shirt he wore was torn in several places, and blood was seeping from the wounds. Above him was his blonde-haired and blue-eyed teammate Naruto Uzumaki, only person he could call his best friend. Naruto wasn't in better shape than Sasuke was. His trademark outfit, an orange tracksuit with a Lee standard blue forehead protector and matching high-top sandals, had been tattered from the fight, blood-stained in many places. "Naruto," Sasuke said, his visible onyx-colored eye watching his blonde teammate trying to heal him, a brilliant green glow that surrounding the blonde's right hand. A bolt of pain shot through his chest when he tried to sit up, making him groan and wince. "Don't move, Sasuke. Just save your strength," Naruto said, pushing his friend slowly down. He sent more chakra in his right palm, and the green glow increased in intensity, morphing into a dark green glow. "Why isn't this working?" He gritted his teeth and watched helplessly his friend's body slowly disintegrating before his eyes. "Naruto, please, hurry up. I am trying my best, Kakashi-sensei." Sweat dripped off Naruto's forehead, but he did not pause, nor did he look toward his teacher, Kakashi Haddock. Kakashi was fit and relatively tall shinobi, whose face was framed by seemingly gravity-defying silver hair. Being a Leaf Nin, he was dressed in a standard uniform of the Leaf Village with a pair of gloves and a flak jacket. Surrounding him was a gigantic transparent humanoid being dressed in full samurai-esque armor. Wings wide to cover as much space as they could do, feet spread to act, hands on the swords ready to draw from the scabbard, the being stood as a shield between Kakashi's students and their opponent. "I hope, Obito, your parting gift Susanoo will handle Kaguya's attacks," Kakashi thought, while his blood-red eyes containing black-colored pinwheel patterns around the central pupil locked onto the women floating in midair. Kaguya Utsutsuki had a cold, emotionless expression on her face, while her piercing wide eyes focused on Naruto and Sasuke. Her extremely long white hair was flowing all around her, taking up much more space than her body itself. No one knew where she came from and whether she was human to begin with, but she had two horns-like protrusions, which stuck out from her head, and a third eye in the center of her forehead, that's eyelids parted vertically. The eye held a ripple-like pattern spread over the eyeball, with red sclera under eyes, containing a pattern of 9 coma-shaped tomo. Kaguya pursued her dark lips and pointed her long fingernail painted dark shade of nail polish at Kakashi's Susanoo. A big bowl of compressed wind shot out of her finger at an incredible speed. The Susanoo quickly brought his swords up and stopped the ball with a crisscross move with his blades, but stumbled back a couple of feet from the power in the attack before finding his footing. He shifted his weight to his left foot, twisted his blades, and directed the ball toward his left. "I don't think the Susanoo will hold another one like it," Kakashi thought, panted as he fell on his knees. His Susanoo distorted slightly, but he stabilized the flow of chakra again. The compressed wind ball hit the ground and produced a blast equivalent to the detonation of several explosives, sending violent rushing wind everywhere. Kaguya's transitional high-collared hime kimono, which was adorned with intricate lines and tomo, fluttered in the wind, but her steady gaze didn't waver from Naruto and Sasuke. "Mom, this time add more chakra into your attack," Black Zetsu said, its malleable black body hiding in Kaguya's left arm sleeve. The will of Kaguya smiled maliciously, flashing all of its razor-sharp teeth. "His defense won't stand against your another powerful attack." "No need to waste my chakra on it," Kaguya said as she stared down at Sasuke. "Once one half falls, they all will fall. Why should we take that risk? That blonde brat with yang half is still alive." "Yes," Kaguya shifted her gaze from Sasuke to Naruto, "but without help from yin half, he cannot start the sealing ritual." She kept her Byakugan fix on Naruto. She couldn't pinpoint what was wrong, but plainly something was. "Sasuke-kun," a kunoichi with bright pink hair said. Her beautiful green eyes glistened with tears. Bending down slowly with trembling hands, she brought her glowing green hand down to check his health. Pink-haired girl fisted her free hand into the side of her pink apron skirt. Sasuke's health condition was bad and was getting worse and worse. She placed her hand over his heart. Her all-healing chakra concentrated in her growing hand as the soft green glow turned into a deep nearly black shade of green. A few tears slid down her cheeks and splashed onto her red top. Not a single healing technique she had learned from her master Tsunade Senju, one of best healer in the elemental nations, was working on him. "Sakura-chan." Naruto gave his teammate Sakura Haruno a sad look as he knew exactly how she was feeling. Sasuke said, "I finally acknowledged you, Naruto." "Huh, Sasuke?" Naruto responded. He looked down at his rival and friend. If I die now, the destiny that according to the sage has bound us so far will end too, Sasuke continued. However, we can. No, you can still win after I die by taking my eyes and yin sage chakra. I won't let you die, Sasuke. Naruto. You and I, we both know. Even with your yang sage power, it is impossible to save me now. Sasuke is right, Naruto. Naruto turned his head to see a tall, pale-skinned elderly man floating in the air, sitting on some sort of elevated invisible ground. He was dressed in a white, full-length kimono with a pattern of 6 red magatama around a high collar, beneath which he wore a necklace, which was also made up of 6 red magatama. Old man. That was when Naruto noticed he and Sasuke were no longer in the Kaguya's dimension. He looked around quickly, taking in his surroundings. The new place was nothing like Kaguya's mountainous region, it was literally empty. There was only a purely white field that held no ground, no sky. Naruto turned back to the person and asked, "Old man, can't you help Sasuke?" This old man was Hagoromo Otsutsuki, known to the world large as the Sage of 6 Paths. He was the son of Kaguya, and alongside his fraternal twin brother Himura, were the first to be born with the same powerful chakra inherited from their mother. He was a legendary godlike figure founded Ninja, which led to the creation of the ninja world. He had spiky, shoulder-length pale red hair, with a chin-length braid hanging in front of his left ear and a long beard, of the same color his hair, down to his waist. He also had horn-like protrusions on his forehead, which he inherited from his mother. The sage descended to Naruto and Sasuke's level. Floating behind him were 9 black balls the size of balls up fists, truth-seeking balls. His legendary Rinnegan eyes locked onto both boys' faces. His Jujutsu literally looked like Kaguya's third eye, but it was purple in color and lacked of Tamo. "I'm sorry, Naruto, I'm afraid I can't do that." The sage gave Sasuke a sad look. He always hated to see his descendants die at a young age. Over the centuries, he watched many of them die, and now, he had to do that again. "My mother is the progenitor of chakra. Her chakra is far stronger than mine," he continued. "The attack she used on Sasuke is one of her strongest attack. It disintegrates whatever it touches instantly. It's only Sasuke's sheer willpower is slowing down its effects and keeping him alive." He closed his eyes. "There is nothing else we can do to save him." Sasuke already knew that. "Naruto, take my eyes and yin sage chakra. This is the only way." Naruto wanted to protest. But, "Naruto, I'll support whatever you decide, but keep in this mind, only your and Sasuke's combined powers can defeat my mother and release the infinite Tsukiyomi," Hagoromo said. "You have to make a decision, fast. Very fast, Naruto." Sasuke's right side started to crumble away into dust. "I can't keep holding this for much longer." Naruto closed his eyes. The infinite Tsukiyomi was Kaguya's strongest technique, a weapon to bring her ideal peace to the world. It was an endless illusion, in which its victims would experience a dream world based on their individual desires. "That piece is lie," the blonde thought. Thanks to Sasuke's enchanted Susanoo, Team 7 hadn't been caught in this illusion. He couldn't say the same thing about people of the elemental nations. They had to defeat the demon goddess and save all victims of the deadly illusion, or else they would turn into her perfect soldiers, white Zetsus. He took a deep breath and went silent for a minute as he recalled the chain of events that led to the current situation: Orochimaru's attack, Sasuke's deflection, Pain's attack, 4th Shinobi War. He made his decision. He opened the eyes and looked at the god of Shinobi. "Let's do this." "Good. Combine your Yang Sage Chakra with Sasuke's Yin Sage Chakra," Hagoromo said. "I'll do the rest. Are you ready, Dobe?" Sasuke said as he raised his left hand, open palm toward Naruto, showing a dark-colored crescent moon representing Yin Chakra. "Team, I was born ready," Naruto said, giving his brother in all but blood a weak smile. He bent down slightly and opened his right hand to display a light-colored circle representing Yang Chakra in the center of the palm. "Yeah, right," Sasuke said, finally putting his trademark smirk on his face. They clapped the hands together, combining Yin and Yang together. The sage raised his black-colored dual-headed shakujo. Its one end had a ringed hoop, while the other end possessed a crescent-shaped curve, representing the sun and moon respectively. "I'm leaving everything up to your hands, Naruto," he said, bringing the shakujo over their hands. "I'm watching you, Dobe. Don't do anything stupid." Naruto felt his body tingling, and then a bright flash blinded him. When his vision finally cleared, he was back in the Kaguya's dimension. Then Naruto. Sakura couldn't hold back tears any longer, they were now flowing heavily down her soft cheeks like warm rain. Sasuke-kun, he is." Naruto looked down at the pile of ash, the sole remaining of his brother in all but blood. A single tear dropped from his left eye, slid down his whiskered cheek, and fell off his chin. He turned around, fixing on Kaguya with a steady, intense gaze that didn't shift or waver. "Hee, Mom, we won," Black Zetsu said, cheering with excitement. "Something isn't right here," Kaguya thought. Her Byakugan caught traces of a familiar chakra inside Naruto's body. Hagoromo. In the blink of an eye, Naruto was in front of Kaguya. Her wide eyes widened. She had no time to react, it happened so fast, when he punched her in the face and sent her flying through the air. He disappeared again, reappeared above her, and kicked her toward the ground. Once she crashed into the ground, a large cloud of dirt and dust shrouded her. Naruto hovered in midair, gazing down for the dust to clear. He knew such a simple attack would never harm her. Sakura. Kakashi walked toward his only female student and stood next to her. "Hey Kakashi-sensei." Sakura sniffed, tears running down her face. I couldn't do anything to save Sasuke-kun." Sakura. Kakashi placed his hand on her shoulder. He knew how much she loved Sasuke, and his death was tearing her up inside. "Don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. I know you tried your best. But Kakashi-sensei. He lived a warrior and died a hero," Kakashi stated. He moved his head toward another hero, who was facing the most powerful being to exist in shinobi history. Kaguya had emerged from a rift in the fabric of space-time and was hovering in midair. "I should have listened to you, Black Zetsu." She held out her hand, and a bone blade came out of her palm, but it's not too late to make it right. She gazed at Naruto. "All chakra belongs to me. Once again, all chakra shall become one." Kaguya entered another dimensional void and transported herself behind Naruto. She swung her bone blade in to finish him off. As soon as her blade hit Naruto, he turned into a wooden log that quickly reduced into the ash. Not really surprised by this, she spun around and fired a bone projectile toward her left, the same attack that killed Sasuke. Her Byakugan can't see further than Hinata and Niji's, Naruto thought. I was barely managed to dodge that bone bullet. Such a childish trick won't work on mom, brat, Black Zetsu said in a mocking tone. Then maybe this will. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath before opening them again. Kaguya froze in her tracks, her eyes bulging in shock and rage. How? Naruto's right eye had deep crimson iris with 3 black tomo and a triangle-shaped formation around the pupil, Sharingan. However, what truly made the rabbit goddess's blood boil with rage was his other eye. He had the same Dijutsu in his left eye she had on the center of her forehead. "What the heck?" Black Zetsu shouted. "How does he have the eye like you, mom?" Naruto's eyes narrowed, and the tomo in his eyes began to spin hypnotically. 9 truth-seeking balls appeared his back in a halo-like formation. He molded one of them into a blade. With a tremendous burst of speed, he crossed a large distance and swung the blade to chop the demon goddess's head. He missed, she sacrificed her left limb carrying Black Zetsu to save her head. The arm was separated from her body and flung toward the ground. Naruto swung up the blade and once again, he brought it whistling down. This time, Kaguya was ready and blocked his blade, countering with summoning a bone blade in her right hand. She pushed the blade away. Naruto gripped the blade and lunged at Kaguya. He swung the blade again, and she blocked again. He struck again and again, with all his might. She blocked each attack as it came. Despite having no formal training on how to fight with a blade like Sasuke had, he was doing well with it. Blocking his blade with her own, Kaguya shot Naruto a glare filled with anger. "How did you get that eye? How did you get Rin Sharingan?" she asked. "The power of that eye belongs to me and only me." Naruto had no idea what she was talking. "What the heck is this Rin Sharingan? Some kind of Sharingan?" He pushed away Kaguya's blade with his own. "Okay. Note to self. Learn how to wield a sword." He barely blocked the blade that came too close to his head. "Only if I survive after this. Hee, this is my chance." Black Zetsu chuckled as it saw the golden chance to remove the obstacle of its mother's piece. Using the severed arm of its creator, it shot a bone projectile toward Naruto through a tiny dimensional rift. "Move." A feminine voice screamed in Naruto's mind. Naruto didn't waste any time to figure out anything. He moved and the bone projectile narrowly missed his head by centimeters. "Black Zetsu," he hissed. "Damn." Black Zetsu said. "I almost had him." Naruto's clone appeared, suddenly, above Black Zetsu. He used 2 of the truth-seeking balls as rods to pin it down, making sure it wouldn't interface again. "You. Stay out of my way," he warned before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Kaguya had managed to regenerate her severed arm back and was staring at Naruto, her face still and icy. She glared at him and slowly raised both arms in front of her with her palms facing up, causing blunt chunks of earth to rise up into the air around Naruto. "Shit." Naruto cursed under his breath as he watched the blunt chunks of earth begin orbiting around him. Kaguya clapped her hands and the chunks of earth followed her, crushing Naruto in between them. Her technique didn't just stop there. It pulled everything in until it expanded into an enormous earth sphere that floated several meters above the ground. "Old man, your mom is super strong," Naruto said to himself. In the last second, he had formed a defensive shield of truth-seeking balls around himself to avoid being crushed inside Kaguya's miniature moon. "Yes. After all, she's my mother and everything, Naruto," a sage-like voice said. Naruto recognized the voice. "Hey, old man, is it you?" he asked. "Yes, Naruto. It's me." "Good. You're here. Well, could you please tell me what I should do to get out of this? If only you had some control over your new eyes, you wouldn't have this problem now." I don't get it," Naruto responded, scratching the back of his head. "But speaking about my new eyes, what the heck is this Rin Sharingan? Have you seen the third eye on my mother's forehead?" "Yeah. That's the Rin Sharingan and you've the same eye in your left eye socket." "What?" Naruto said, stunned, his eyes wide open in shock. "How do I have that eye? Sasuke didn't have it. Because neither Sasuke nor I have taken into account a bit of all the tailed beast's chakra inside you, I hope you'll not become like my mother." "What was in the last?" "That isn't that important." "Hey, you haven't answered my question yet. Use the Rin Sharingan." "But I don't know how." "That's why I am here." Outside the sphere, things were strangely quiet, but not in the sense of the sacred silence. Instead, it was more like the proverbial calm before the storm. Almighty push. The entire planetary mass shook, large cracks breaking out over its surface, only for it to stop shortly. A moment later, it exploded out in massive eruption, sending debris and molten rock miles away from the epicenter. Kaguya flared her godly chakra, and Kakashi covered himself and Sakura under Susanu's wings to shield themselves from the incoming shockwave and pyroclastic flow of the falling miniature moon. However, one person didn't have the resources like them. "Hey. Watch where you're throwing those things." Black Zetsu shouted. 2 large rocks had almost hit it. Suddenly, a big shadow fell over it. "Mommy, help me." While hovering in midair, Naruto gazed at Kaguya with the sage's Shakujo in his hand. He pointed with his free hand, palm facing Kaguya, and shot out multiple golden chakra chains having tips like sharp talons. In an effort to avoid them, Kaguya flew up. The chakra chains took a sharp turn and followed her up there. She moved, but they still followed her. She was losing patience with this cat and mouse games. She stopped, summoned several white-colored arms made of her pure chakra, and cut all chains that wanted to restrain her. To her surprise, the chains still followed her even after being separated from the source. As a last resort, she tried to teleport away through a dimensional void. That also failed as the chains went after her through the half-closed rift. Kaguya hissed pain between the teeth when the talons dug deep into her flesh. The chains then dragged her out of the portal. Naruto immediately moved toward her, ready to seal her. However, sealing progenitor of chakra wasn't that easy. Before he could reach out and touch her, the goddess flared her chakra. She broke all restraints and entered another dimensional void. "Naruto, right behind you." The same feminine voice from earlier warned him again. Kaguya tried to drag Naruto into another dimension, but her hands met empty air. The blonde had swapped places with a small rock at the right time. He quickly made a T-shaped hand seal. Multiple shadow clone jutsu. 50 clones puffed into existence. All of them flew up, charging directly into their common opponent. Kaguya extended her fists and randomly began launching chakra arms. They instantly vaporized the clones that they came to contact with. When she finished, only 10 Naruto were left. In their hand, each of them was holding a giant black orb of chakra with shuriken-like blades around it. 9 of them threw their respective Rasen Shuriken at the same time. Multiple-tailed beast bowl Rasen Shuriken. "This is for you, Sasuke," the remaining one, the real Naruto, said. The Rasen Shuriken in his hand was slightly than others. It was black like tailed beast bowl Rasen Shuriken, through exception on having shuriken-like blades cracking with red electricity, giving off a sound reminiscent of birds flapping their wings. Red lightning release. Rasen Shuriken. He tossed it. His Rasen Shuriken quickly got in the line of the other as they moved at great speeds toward Kaguya. When they hit the target, they expanded and enveloped her with a bright white light that stretches the full length of several kilometers. The blast was much bigger than Naruto expected as he peered up at the thinning dust cloud. "What the?" he nearly shouted when he saw Kaguya slowly standing up on her feet, looking like nothing had happened. Kaguya suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. White chakra began to bubble up from her skin. Her body exploded in the form of a raw chakra, blinding everyone. When Naruto's vision cleared, Kaguya was gone and a monster had taken her place. Naruto had no idea what kind of beast it was, only that was resembled a giant rabbit crossed with all-tailed beasts. This wasn't the kind of result he had expected. He could only describe the creature as a conglomerate of all-tailed beasts. The gigantic rabbit creature was very fitting with Kaguya being known as the rabbit goddess. It possessed the upper body structure of a human with jagged teeth and had Kaguya's signature Rin Sharingan on its forehead. Its lower part contained a great spherical mass of chakra, with the heads of the 9-tailed beasts emerging from it, along with several chakra arms. "Mother has lost control over her chakra, Naruto. We can't seal her in this form, but we can weaken her," Hagoromo told Naruto. "Got it, old man." 3 golden chakra chains shoot out of Naruto's body and pinned the beast down to the ground. The rabbit creature began to struggle to free itself, so Naruto tightened the grip around it. Then the beast's chakra slowly began to seep out of the body through the chains and wrap around Naruto like a warm blanket, emanating a brilliant white glow that surrounded the both of them. This chakra is so strong and powerful, Naruto thought, nearly falling on his knees due to the weight of the demon goddess's chakra. I don't know how much chakra I can handle without losing control on myself. After losing a large amount of chakra, the beast shrank down to more than half its original size, causing the chain's grip to loosen around its body. It gave the beast enough time to perform a counterattack. Unbalanced form of progenitor of chakra roared, lifted the hand, and brought down. It was about to crush Naruto under its large hand, but Kakashi's perfect Susanoo swiftly moved in between them and grabbed blonde. Armored-clad warrior then flapped his large wings and flew up high into the sky at high speed. Are you alright, Naruto? Kakashi asked, bringing Susanoo's arm up where he and Sakura were hovering inside the armored warrior. Yeah, I am fine, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said as he stood up on the Susanoo's shoulder. Kakashi moved his head and his Sharingan eyes locked onto the creature not far from them. What's happened to her, he asked. Naruto turned and looked straight at the transformed form of Kaguya. Her power has gone out of her control, sensei, he answered. He made the ram seal, tightening the grip of the chakra chains and imitating movement of the beast once again. Suddenly, the chains lost their golden glow, grew dark, and started to shrink. They slowly absorbed into the beast's body, causing them to vanish. The beast was once again free. It roared and turned into a massive chakra. The mass twisted, turned and started to shrink down to a human size, signaling that Kaguya had regained control over her power. In a flash, she got back into the game. She spun toward Naruto with a murderous look in her cold wide eyes. You shouldn't have taken her chakra, Hagoromo said. He hoped Naruto wouldn't hear the nervousness in his voice. That was your idea, old man, not mine, Naruto yelled in his mind. Yes, but mother doesn't know that. Kaguya lifted her arms up and formed the tailed beast mass, which had caused her to lose control over her power, into a giant black-colored ball. Naruto gulped, he immediately recognized the giant truth-seeking ball in her hand. Kakashi-sensei. We're doomed if that ball hit us, he said. Kakashi realized how serious the situation had become. Naruto, prepare to catch us, he said before he turned his head to Sakura. I need your chakra for this, Sakura. Sakura nodded. She pressed her glowing hand on Kakashi's back. Kakashi took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and then opened again. He concentrated on his eyes, channeling all chakra into the Sharingan. His vision distorted through the eyes, his stance faltering slightly as the eyes fed on his chakra. Susanoo's feet slowly started to disintegrate, but he didn't stop. He gritted his teeth behind his mask. For a split second, he closed his eyes and when he opened up it back, everything became clear to him. He focused his gaze on the giant truth-seeking ball. Pamui. The giant vortex formed and began to eat the giant truth-seeking ball. It consumed the whole ball before it disappeared without leaving any trace behind. Due to lack of chakra, Susanoo disappeared. Two Naruto's clones acted quickly and caught Kakashi and Sakura before they actually started falling. The clones slowly floated down until their feet touched the ground. Kakashi sat heavily on the ground. Exhaustion swept over his face as he rubbed his eyes. When he looked up, Sakura gasped in surprise. Kakashi-sensei, your eyes. Kakashi looked down, his original dark-colored eyes had forever replaced his Sharingan eyes. Yeah, guess Kakashi of the Sharingan ends today. Meanwhile, real Naruto and Kaguya were attacking each other. Kaguya launched Bones bullets at Naruto who surrounded himself in a sphere formed from the truth-seeking balls. Seeing her attack had failed, she held her palm up as chakra was gathered at the center of it. The chakra gathered formed into a basketball-sized white sphere before shooting out at extreme speed, forming into a spear in the process. In the same time, Naruto held out his hand and the staff he had dropped earlier somewhere flew back into his hand. He threw it in the direction of Kaguya. Both attacks collided in mid-air, resulting in an explosion like a giant volcanic eruption, which sent a cloud of smoke up that covered the area. The shockwave generated by it was so intense it blasted Kaguya and Naruto in opposite directions. After the onslaught, Naruto had shakily stood to his feet, his head still ringing. His clothes were torn, dirty, and still smoldering in numerous places. He opened his senses to locate Kaguya. Where are you? The rift slowly opened behind Naruto. Kaguya did not give Mercy a second thought as she plunged her bone sword in his back right through the heart. Naruto coughed up a small amount of blood. Hee, just like Niji. The puzzled look appeared on Kaguya's face. Naruto smirked and disappeared into a puff of smoke. The real one suddenly shot out of the ground, a smoke-enveloped fist slamming into Kaguya's chin. He didn't waste another second. He whipped a chakra chain and wrapped it around the demon goddess. He tugged it hard to pull her toward him and pressed both palms onto her shoulders. 6 Path Shibaku Tensei. Naruto activated one of the most powerful sealing techniques, and both halves, moon and sun, slowly came together, like puzzle pieces. Lunar eclipse began to form on Kaguya's third eye, slowly sealing off her third eye along with her chakra. Again, I, the ancestor of all chakra, am defeated by these scattered chakras. Why? Kaguya said weakly as she felt the last bit of her strength to leave her. She looked up and saw her son, Hagoromo, instead of Naruto. Hagoromo, you. I hate you. Those were her last words before her prized jutsu and chakra sealed off completely. Her body slowly ascended into the air. Naruto, we've to retrieve all tailed beast, so get ready, Hagoromo said. He instructed through their mental link. Naruto followed Sage's instruction and clapped his hands together. Kaguya's body changed back into the 10 tails, with each tail ending with the head of one of the tailed beasts, and the 10th ending with the rabbit head, sans Rin Sharingan. He concentrated more, sweat dripping off his forehead, and split the 10 tails chakra into the 9 tailed beasts. Madara Uchiha, whose body Black Zetsu used to revive its mother, was also separated from 10th tail. He crashed to the ground, leaving behind an earthen-colored humanoid entity with a decayed appearance and a number of spike-like protrusions on its back. It was Kaguya's deplored form. Finally out. Kurama. Your Jinchuriki is nice, Son Goku, the 4-tailed red-colored monkey, said. In return, he got a smirk from the 9-tailed fox. It's time to seal away my mother forever from everyone's reach, Hagoromo said. It was chaotic. The earth itself was ripped open as huge masses of earth were pulled up toward the body of the husk. Everything was mercilessly crushed against it, creating an enormous earth sphere that was getting bigger and bigger with each passing moment. The will of Kaguya was like a shadow. Just like a shadow, it could twist and bend, as its body had no true form, thus making it extremely tough to kill. This malleable physiology had helped it survive on the battlefield. I don't have a choice, I will have to wait until for my mother to be revived again, Black Zetsu thought while watching the blonde brat sealing its creator's body inside a gigantic earth sphere. A long shadow fell over it, so it looked up. Why you? What do you want now? Haven't you done enough damage? Black Zetsu, clone of Naruto, said slowly, venom dripping from his words. He rarely disliked someone, but the thing in front of him was an exception. You are the culprit behind all this. He gazed down at the Kaguya's will with his cold eyes. You tempted the sage's eldest son Indra to go war with his younger brother Asura. You didn't stop there. Over centuries, you manipulated both brothers' reincarnation and their descendants for your own gain. So, what? You used Obito. You used Madara. You used everyone as a tool of reviving Kaguya. Naruto's head was down and facing the ground, with a heavy shadow casted over his head, covering his expression entirely. Because of your action, many ninja died, my friends died in my arms. Black Zetsu sneered. I don't care how many human dies. I won't stop until I revive my mother once again. You didn't want to leave your mom, right? Naruto stepped forward and leaned to grab the sleeve of Kaguya's severed arm. You're just a part of the shinobi history I've created so far. You're just a brat, you can't. The shinobi history was made by the lives of many ninja and their deaths. Naruto hurled Kaguya's severed along with Black Zetsu toward the gigantic earth sphere. A brat who can't even leave his mother's side won't understand a thing about it. He screamed and he dispatched the last obstacle of world peace, making sure Kaguya wouldn't come from her grave ever again. Naruto dropped heavily on the ground and lay there panting on the soil with his eyes closed. When he was finally able to get his breathing under control, he opened his eyes and looked up at the second stone prison of Kaguya he had created within her own dimension by ripping off a huge portion of the planet. The prison was now orbiting around the planet as a satellite. That was quite tiresome, he said to himself, panting as he sat up. Because you don't have control over your power, Hagoromo said. Whatever, Naruto said. He noticed a bright sun mark on his right palm and the dark crescent moon mark on his left palm. Hey, old man. I thought those marks would disappear after the sealing. Naruto, you've established peace to the elemental nations, but your destiny isn't over yet, the same famine voice that had warned him about Kaguya's attack said. What? The white light consumed Naruto and everything around him. He was temporarily blinded by it was so bright. In the elemental nations, the infinite Tsukiyomi casted by Madara and later sustained by Kaguya's power ended immediately after the sealing. Upon the technique's cancellation, the roots of the divine tree used to bind the victims withered, as did all remaining white Zetsu, who were also victims of it. So it's finally over, Tobirama said while looking up at bright full moon. Tobirama Senju was the second Hokage of the Hidden Leaf. He was a tall, fair-skinned man with white, shaggy hair, dark-colored eyes, and 3 red markings on his face. He wore a blue-colored war armor emblazoned with the Senju symbol and a hapuri engraved with a leaf emblem in the place of the more traditional forehead protector. The second Hokage tilted his head to his right at his brother Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage of the Leaf Village. Hashirama was slightly taller than he was and had tanned skin, dark eyes, and waist-length black hair, typically styled in a center-parted fringe that framed his face. He wore a traditional samurai red-colored armor, along with a leaf forehead protector. Being reincarnated by Ito Tensei, he also had gray sclera in place of white sclera like his brother. Grandfather, granduncle. They turned around and saw the 5th Hokage Tsunade Senju, along with a large army of the allied forces behind her. Tsunade was a light-skinned woman of average height with brown eyes and straight blonde hair. She was dressed in gray, kimono-style blouse with no sleeves, held closed by a broad, dark bluish-gray obi that matched her pants. Seeing his granddaughter, Hashirama grinned, throwing his arms up in the air. "Hey Tsunade. We won," he shouted out in a cheerful tone. All shinobi, including his own brother and granddaughter, sweat dropped on carefree and easygoing attitude of the legendary shinobi like him. "Brother, what am I going to do with you?" Tobirama shook his head. "Orochimaru. Sarutobi sensei." The 3rd Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi was a dark-skinned man of below-average stature with gray spiked hair and had a small goatee. The Snake Sanin Orochimaru was a tall shinobi. He had extremely pale skin, waist-length black hair, long face with pronounced cheekbones, and golden slided eyes. They stood not far away from the previous Hokage. They stared at each other for a few minutes before Hiruzen broke silence. "Orochimaru," he said, "why didn't reincarnate Minato? If he had been here, a lot of things would have gone much easier." "Sensei, it's not like I haven't tried that, because I have. It's just that Minato's soul wasn't in Shinigami's stomach." "What's that meant?" "I don't know. I tried to summon Minato multiple times before, but failed every time. First I thought it was due to his soul being inside Shinigami's stomach, but now." Orochimaru shook his head. He didn't understand why he couldn't summon the 4th Hokage. "Tsunade-sama, we've found them," One Leaf Jounin shouted, getting everyone's attention toward him. "Oh, my head," Kakashi said. He sat up, one hand rubbing the sore spot on his head. He looked up and found himself surrounded by all Hokage, sans his sensei the 4th Hokage. Tsunade-sama. "Kakashi, where are your students?" Tsunade asked with authority in her voice. "They must be here. Somewhere." "Kakashi," the 3rd Hokage said. "We found Sakura. Unconscious, pretty badly injured, but alive." "And tailed beasts," Hashirama said as he pointed behind Kakashi. Kakashi looked his back to see the tailed beasts. All of them appeared to be unconscious. Tsunade asked again, "Where are your remaining students, Kakashi?" Kakashi looked down. "Sasuke died as a hero," he said. "And Naruto?" Tsunade asked, fearing the worst. "The last time I checked he was perfectly fine." "I can't sense his chakra," Kurama said. He got up on his feet and closed his eye to sense his container's chakra. His eyes shot open in surprise. I can't find Naruto." Suddenly, there was a puff of smoke and a small green toad with white hair styled appeared. The toad had very thick eyebrows and a small goatee. He had a sage staff in his hand. "Bukasaku-sama," Hiruzen said as he recognized one of the great sages of Mount Mamboku. Bukasaku turned toward Tsunade. "Tsunade-chan," he said. "Naruto's name has vanished from our contract." Tsunade's eyes widened in shock as she realized what he was hinting at. Our hero's body was sailing through a dark empty space. He didn't have any bruises or scratches, but his hair was matted and dirty, clothes were dirty and torn, and didn't have shoes on his feet. "Naruto," a soft feminine voice spoke. When she got no response from him, she slapped him hard across the face. "Naruto. Wake up." Naruto jolted awake and sat upright, rubbing his cheek. He stood up and glared at the person who had slapped him. "What the mom?" His eyes were bugged out and he wasn't moving. His mother Kushina Uzumaki, who had died shortly after his birth, was standing before him. Kushina was beautiful and looked like she did not age a day in 17 years. In fact, she looked much younger and fit. She had a slender, but a feminine build, fair skin, fiery red hair with strands that framed both sides of her face, and a black clip that parts her hair to the left, keeping it out of her eyes. She wore the outfit consisting of a high-collared, sleeveless blouse under a long, loose-fitting dress. Naruto noticed that she had white sclera, along with her normal violet eyes, which meant she wasn't an Ito Tensei. "Mom?" Naruto said again. He enveloped her in his arms, giving her a bone-crushing hug, which she gladly returned. After parting from the hug, he asked, "Mom, you're alive?" Kushina asked, "Naruto, do you realize where we are?" "Huh?" Naruto looked around him. To his surprise and shock, he found himself dark in seemingly empty space. He turned his head back toward his mother's face. "Am I dead?" "No, you are not." Naruto breathed a sigh in relief. "Then where are we and what is this place?" "This place is nowhere. It is in between the ninja world and Earth. You can call it the dimensional gap." "The dimensional gap? How did I get here?" "Naruto, I summoned you here to take you to your rightful place where you belong." Kushina smiled and touched his cheek. I've waited so long for this day to come. You see, you do not belong to the ninja world, neither do your father and me. That place isn't your home, the earth is. We wanted to take you with us after your birth, but you being the child of prophecy prevented us from doing that. She smiled again. Now the prophecy is over, so I can finally take you to your actual home and give your rightful place where you should have been. She moved ahead and kissed him lightly on his forehead. A blinding white light enveloped him. It's not goodbye, but see you soon. And one final word of advice, though, my son. Get a book on Greek god and goddess. Trust me, you will need that information. 1 second, Naruto was standing in front of his mother, and the next second, he found himself in an endless sky of blinding blue, falling and hurtling toward the ground at breakneck speed. Instead of his dirty, tattered old clothes, he was in an entirely new outfit that would perfectly fit into Earth's modern fashion. A burnt orange black-white jacket, a black t-shirt, fingerless gloves with metal plates on the backhand, black leather pants, black ninja pouch on left thigh. And black shoes. Mom. Are you trying to kill me? He screamed. Suddenly, everything seemed to freeze. Time itself stopped. Once again, Naruto was in the white world, in front of the sage. Old man, you are still inside my mind. I have decided to stay and help you with your powers until you know how to use them properly. Hagoromo looked at the blonde-haired boy carefully and noticed his physical changes. His new golden blonde hair and slightly faded his trademark whisker mark. Having Naruto's dual Dijutsu off, he was able to see the most noticeable change in his physical appearance. The blonde had two different colored eyes now. His right eye had retained its original sky blue color, but his left eye had turned a blood red color. My mother was once a rather widely worshipped goddess and I don't know what changed her, so much to the point she was referred to as a demon. Something must have happened when she ate the chakra fruit, he thought. Naruto, you might have the exact same power like my mother. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you don't turn out like her. Hey, old man. Are you here? Naruto said while waving hand over Sage's face. Sorry Naruto. I was thinking about something, Hagoromo said. Anyway, why were you screaming earlier? Naruto's face turned a shen white, as if he had seen a ghost. Old man. You have to help me. I'm falling from the sky. He shouted. Naruto, calm down. You can fly, remember? Huh? A sudden realization hit him. Oh, yeah. Naruto smiled and gave the old sage a nice guy pose. Thanks, old man. You are the best. Naruto found himself back in midair, falling toward the ground again. However, this time, everything was in his control. Now do you see how hopeless it is? Yield, little heroes. A human-animal hybrid laughed. He had the face of a man, the body of a lion and the tail of a scorpion. A manticore, a monster in Greek mythology. 5 demigods, 2 boys and 3 girls and 1 satyr, felt helpless as they were trapped between the monster and the fully armed helicopter. Most of them knew that the chances of getting out of this situation alive were abysmal. However, miracles happen every day all around the world. The clear, piercing sound of a hunting horn being blown froze the monster in his place. For a moment, no one moved. There was only the swirl of snow and wind and the chopping of the helicopter blades. No, the monster said. It cannot be. His sentence was cut short when he was shot in the shoulder by a glowing silver arrow. He staggered backward, wailing in agony. Curse you! The monster cried, unleashing his spikes, dozens of them at once, into the woods where the arrow had come from, but just as fast silvery arrows shot back in reply. The arrows had intercepted the thorns in midair and sliced them in two. The monster pulled the arrow out of his shoulder with a howl of pain. His breathing was heavy. Taking advantage of his distraction, a 14-year-old boy with black hair and sea-green eyes ran forward. His name was Percy Jackson, a demigod son of Poseidon. He tried to swipe at the monster with his sword, but the monster wasn't as injured as he looked. He dodged the attack and slammed his tail into the shield in Percy's hand, knocking him aside. Then the archers came from the woods. They were dozen of girls. The youngest was close to 10 years old. The oldest, about 14 years old. They wore silvery ski parkas and jeans, and they were all equipped with bows. They advanced on the monster with determined expressions. The hunters, the demigod daughter of Athena cried. Her name was Annabeth Chase. She had curly blonde hair, stormy gray-eyed like most of Athena's children had. Oh, wonderful, the girl standing next to Percy muttered. Her name was Thalia, a demigod daughter of Zeus. She had spiky black hair, electric blue eyes, and freckles across her nose. The son of Poseidon was confused because he didn't know what was happening around him. He even didn't get a chance to ask his companions about it as one of the older archers stepped forward with her bow drawn. She was tall and graceful with coppery-colored skin. Unlike rest of girls, she had a silver circlet braided into the top of her long dark hair. Permission to kill, my lady? She asked without taking her from the monster. The monster wailed. This is not fair. Direct interference. It is against the ancient laws. Not so. Another girl came forward. She also seemed to be about 12 or 13 years old. She had auburn hair gathered back in a ponytail and strange eyes, silvery yellow like the moon. The hunting of all wild beasts is within my sphere. And you, foul creature, are a wild beast, she said, her facial expression quite dangerous. She looked at the older girl with a circlet. Zo, permission granted. The manticore growled. If I cannot have these alive, I shall have them dead. Before the monster could do something, a loud voice got everything attention. Hey, watch out. Everyone stopped what he or she were doing and looked up. They caught sight of a black object rocketing down toward them. Everyone, excluding the manticore, instinctively took several steps back from danger. When the monster realized what was happening, it was already too late to avoid it. The object crashed down next to him. It created a small shockwave that was enough to send the monster skidding across the ground. The object that had crashed to the ground was none other than our hero, Naruto. He stood up from his crouched position inside the small crater he had left and brushed off the loose dirt from his jacket. He looked around and took notice of his environment. He was on a cliff, but he could hear the waves churning and smell the cold salty froth, so he concluded he was near the sea. His sweat dropped when his eyes fell on a bunch of young girls with their arrows pointed at him. They had angry, disgust, and curious expression on their faces. He looked behind him to see what else he had done. Okay, what's a failed experiment of Snake Freak doing here? Naruto asked, mostly himself, looking at the manticore. The monster stood up and glared at Naruto. You. He cried. I am going to kill you. He fired his half-dozen spikes at once toward Naruto, but they only hit the ground where their target was a moment ago. He felt pain. He looked down to see Naruto, who'd punched him in the stomach. Man, you are too slow, Naruto said, smiling. Then he was gone once again and appeared on the monster's back. His extra weight made the monster stumble forward before falling face first onto the ground. Two demigod siblings, Bianca and Nico di Angela, shared some similar physical characteristics like dark silky hair and olive skin, but they had completely different expression on their faces while they watched the fight. That was so cool. 10 years old Nico shouted, with beaming smile. He turned his head to look at his 12-year-old sister, who had a rather surprised look on her face. Did you see that 1 second he was there? And next, he was there, he explained, using his hand for pointing the places and making the gesture. Shut up, Nico. Bianca scolded him before turning to other demigods. She pointed her finger at Naruto. Do you know him? Well no, the satyr-named Grover Underwood said. He had curly brown hair, brown eyes, white pimply skin. His extra non-human features were hidden behind fake human feet and cap. My lady? Zoe asked while not taking her eyes from the fight. The auburn-haired girl said, wait, Zoe. I want to see what he can do. She narrowed her silvery yellow eyes at the blonde boy. Naruto stared at the half-beaten monster, which was surprisingly still standing on his feet. His heightened sense of hearing caught the sound of snap snap snap. He backflipped, putting distance between himself and the monster. Tiny holes appeared in the snow where he was a second before. Naruto looked up. What is it? He thought. Naruto, Earth is far more technologically advanced than the elemental nations. That thing you are seeing is called helicopter. It's a machine, Hagoromo explained. How did you know that? In my life, and even after my death, I've visited numerous places. Earth is one of the places in them. Naruto let his senses roam. From inside the helicopter, he could sense a large amount of negative emotions, which were screaming, we are the bad guys here. So any suggestions? He asked telepathically. He moved forward, kept dodging the bullets until he came close to the helicopter. Yes. Separate its tail from the main body. Got it. Several chakra chains shot out of Naruto's palm and wrapped around helicopter's tail rotor. Goodbye. He tugged the chains and separated the tail rotor from the helicopter's main body. The effect was instant. The helicopter began a violent left-hand descending spin toward the ocean. Then it crashed into the ocean without a trace. That was very good advice, old man, Naruto said. He turned around to see the Orochimaru's failed experiment with a blonde girl on his back fall from the cliff. This is not the end, Huntress. You shall pay. The monster had shouted. Hey, old man. How did I understand what Snake Freak's failed experiments said? Naruto asked. I think your mother has done something about it, the sage said. You think? Yes. Man, my mom is awesome. Naruto, keep attention on your front. That auburn-haired girl is saying something. And be respectful. Naruto looked down at two girls. The girl with auburn hair looked perfectly calm, but he clearly sensed her irritation. The next to her was a different story. He didn't require anything to sense her emotion. The death glare she was openly giving him told him everything. Did you say something? He asked, tilting his head to the side. Yes, the auburn-haired girl said, now her face clearly showing irritation she had been hiding before. I asked your name. Oh, sorry about that. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt. Really? Zo finally had enough. Show some respect toward Lady Artemis, she said. Her glare increased tenfold. Zo, stand down. I sense no disrespect, Artemis said as she held up her right hand to stop her from doing anything reckless. Yes, I am real Artemis. Well, then I suppose you can tell me, Naruto said, one hand rubbing the back of his head, what this Greek is. Huh? Artemis, for the first time, was truly left speechless. To be continued. What? Artemis asked. Could you repeat that again? What is this Greek? Naruto said. He had no idea who she really was. Artemis stared at the boy for a moment. His clueless face told her that the boy truly didn't know anything about Greek history or Greek gods. Where are you from again? I'm from the elemental nations. The surprised look appeared on Artemis's face, but as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared. That's explained it, she thought. Where is that place? Zo asked as she had no clue about it. I will tell you about it later, Zo, Artemis said before looking at Naruto. She hardened her voice. Now tell me, how did you get here and what is your purpose in coming here? If Naruto was surprised by her question, he didn't show it on his face. Truthfully, I don't know what I am doing here, he said. My mother, who I thought was dead, told me you do not belong to the ninja world. And then sent me here. Did she tell you anything else? Yeah, she gave me the advice to read books on Greek god and goddess. She also said your father also from this world, Hagoromo said through their mental link. Should I tell her that? Naruto asked. It will be better if you withhold some information about yourself. Why should I do that? You've already given her too much information about yourself, no need to tell her about your father also. We don't know how she will react on this. So his mother is a Greek goddess, Artemis thought, eyeing the blonde carefully to find any clue about his mother's identity. A blonde hair. Athena. No. I don't think she is his mother. As far as I know she doesn't like that place much. Aphrodite. The aura is too strong for her or any minor goddess's child. Hestia and Hera are out of options. There is something on my face. Naruto said as he noticed Artemis looking strangely at him. Nothing. Artemis turned around and began to walk. Come with me. I will tell someone to explain everything to you. Zo glared at the blonde boy before she followed her goddess. Weird, Naruto thought as he went after the goddess. But at least, she didn't try to kill you like a certain goddess I know, Hagoromo said. Naruto shivered thinking about Kaguya. Naruto's sweat dropped as he watched Zo and other girl named Thalia giving death glares to each other. They don't seem to like each other very much, he said. Artemis signed before saying, Zo, that's enough. We will rest here for a few hours. Raise the tents. Treat the wounded. Retrieve our guests' belongings from the school. Zo said, yes, my lady. And, Bianca, come with me. I would like to speak with you. What about me? Naiko asked. Don't worry. I'll give you company until your sister comes back, Naruto said, smiling. Naiko looked up at Naruto. Really? He asked. Naruto ruffled the boy's dark hair. Yes. Naiko's broke into a wide, beaming smile. Cool. Maybe you can show me your super cool moves, he said. Artemis gave Naruto a grateful nod. She turned to Grover. Could you answer some of his question? She pointed at Naruto. As a favor to me. Grover nearly tripped over himself. Why yes, sure, Lady Artemis. Hand of yours? Naruto said in a low tone so only Artemis could hear him. He is a satyr. They are often drawn toward nature, Artemis said. That's interesting. Naruto stared at Grover with a fixed gaze. A sage marking a small red rhombus mark on forehead and red pigmentations around his eyes through to his ears materialized on his face when he entered the sage mode. The natural energy around you is so pure, he told Grover. But compared to the elemental nations, the natural energy of this world is so weak and populated with foul energy, Hagoromo pointed out. Grover's mouth opened and closed a few times. How? He asked finally. He could sense the blonde was full in nature just like Lady Artemis. I am a sage, Naruto said. He released all natural energy he had collected earlier, causing the sage markings to disappear. Artemis had a surprised expression on her face. The rest of the children, excluding Zo, had confused expression on their faces. A real sage, really? Grover said. Aren't you too young to be a sage? Thalia asked. I don't know what you think about being a sage, but it has nothing to do with age, Naruto said, crossing his arms across his chest. A true sage means being one with nature. Come on, Grover said to Naruto, excitement rising in his voice. Grover and Naruto, followed by Naiko, walked off toward the woods, talking about random topics. Most topics were focused on the nature, something Naiko's child's mind couldn't understand. Artemis signed and led a confused-looking Bianca along the cliff. Zo gave Thalia another death glare and followed Artemis. As soon as were gone, Thalia stamped her foot in frustration. The nerve of those hunters. They think they're so arg. I'm with you, Percy said. I don't trust. Oh, you're with me? Thalia cut in as she turned on him furiously. What were you thinking back there in the gym, Percy? You take on Dr. Thorne all by yourself. You knew he was a monster. If we'd stuck together, we could have taken him without the hunters getting involved. Annabeth might still be here. Did you think of that? Percy's jaw clenched. He couldn't believe Annabeth was gone. He was angry at Thalia for implying it was his fault, but deep down, he knew she was right. It was his fault. He looked down and saw something navy blue lying in the snow at his feet. York Yankees baseball cap. He picked it up. Annie's cap, Thalia said. What? Grover's voice rang out into the woods. Percy and Thalia immediately grabbed their respective weapons, thinking that there might be another monster's attack, and ran toward the woods. Grover. Are you okay? Percy asked as soon as he got there. He looked around quickly, trying to find the monster, but he found no trace of it. Grover, where is it? Grover asked, what? Monster? Grover looked at him with a confused expression. What are you talking about? There is no monster here. Then why did you scream? Thalia asked as she was annoyed by the fact that she had ran for nothing. Well, I just asked him a simple question, Naruto said. Thalia turned toward him. What did you ask? What is this Greek? What? Thalia and Percy shouted together, causing Naruto to cover his sensitive ears again. Percy, he is more clueless than you are, Grover said. Percy nodded dumbly before realizing what he had said. Hey. Instead of screamin', why don't you strat to tell me everything about this Greek? Naruto said, rubbing his ears. Being a ninja and former Jinchuriki, he possessed heightened senses, making his hearing much more sensitive than a normal human's. My lady, Zoe said. Where is this elemental nation's place? I've never heard about it before. Artemis watched her hunters unpacking their knapsacks and making camp. She turned the head to her second command. I am not surprised, Zoe. She said. The elemental nations is not on Earth. It is name of one of the closest dimensions Earth has. Are those real? Bianca asked. She was probably having one of the weirdest days of her life. First, she had learned front a bunch of kids that Greek mythology was not really a mythology, the Greek gods were very much real, there was no doubt in that, because the Greek goddess Artemis, goddess of the moon and the hunt, herself, was standing next to her, and her and Niko's father was possibly one of them. As if that wasn't enough, the moon goddess was now saying there was in another dimension, something had been mentioned many times in the several comics. Now, what? Gods have multiple personality disorder, she thought. Yes, Artemis said. Bianca said, huh? Multiple dimensions do exist. The elemental nations is one of them. That place is most beautiful place I've ever seen. Really? Zoe asked. If that place could impress her mistress then it must be quite beautiful. Yes, it is filled with large untouched forest and various wildlives, and has almost no pollution. But, Artemis's face became serious despite being technologically backward than Earth, the mortal and the elemental nations have something that makes them very dangerous. They've mythical energy named chakra. Using it, they can execute feats that regular beings, even most of the demigods, are unable to do. They can increase their strength, speed, durability, they can control the elements, they can cast illusions. And many more. Then that boy is dangerous. Not only is he from that world, but also a demigod, Zoe said immediately. Which is quite surprising. Why? The elemental nations doesn't come under Olympians as rule. It has separate deities and they have set some rules for us. Rules? Bianca asked. Yes, rules. Artemis said. We, Greek gods, can enter their dimension, but can't interact with any mortals of that dimension. The mortals can't hear us, they can't see us, they can't touch us. To them, we gods are like a ghost. Zoe asked, then how did that born? Only one way it's possible to interact with mortals. It is in our mortal form with having all our powers sealed. Why did deities of that place make such rule, my lady? For that, we have to thank Ares and trouble he caused 2,000 years ago. Do they even know what a condom is? Naruto asked when Grover finished telling him about Greek gods and how many demigod children they had in each century. Everyone, except Niko, sweat dropped at his question. Condom? What is it? The young boy asked, confusion written all over his face. Well. Does anyone explain you about birds and the bees stuff? Naruto asked, tilting his head toward the boy. The birds and the bees. Okay. Niko's clueless face told him everything. He turned to Percy. Give Niko the talk, Percy. Percy was taken aback by this. Why me? You're the leader of your group, Naruto said, folding his arm, so it is your job. He is right. You are the leader, Percy, Thalia said, smirking inside. She was going to enjoy it. Grover also nodded his head yes, agreeing with her, because he himself didn't want to do that. Traitor, Percy thought. He looked down at Niko. The boy had a curious expression on his face, which was making him feel awkward. Well. He was lost for words as he didn't know how to start, but then, surprisingly, Zoe Nightshade came to his rescue. Percy Jackson. Come with me, she said. Lady Artemis wishes to speak with thee. Percy breathed a sigh of relief. It was his chance to get off this embracing situation. He nodded immediately. Hey. What's about me? Nico asked. Ask Grover, he'll explain you everything, Percy said, causing Grover's face to become pale white. Nico looked at Grover. His steady gaze seemed to make Half-Goat uncomfortable. Ask Iron, the satyr said. The color of his face returned back to normal. Yes, Chiron. He will tell you. Chiron? The horseman. Yes, he is the activities director at Camp Half-Blood. But. Nico was about to complain, but before he could open his mouth, he heard a loud rumbling noise. Huh? Sorry, I haven't eaten anything in last 2 days, Naruto said, rubbing back of his head. Do you know where I can find a good ramen stand? Ramen? What is it? Grover asked. Food of the gods. Eh? But ambrosia is the food of gods. I don't know what ambro. Whatever it is, but ramen. Ramen is a gift that God has given to all humankind. The next hour, 2 demigods and 1 satyr spent with Naruto listening his talk about his favorite food ramen. Is he nuts? Thalia thought. Is ramen really that delicious? Grover asked. His mouth was watering just thinking about it. Naruto answered, yeah. Nico asked, will it make me strong like you? Naruto nodded his head. Cool, I'm in. Thalia had enough of this. It is only a noodle soup, she shouted. Yes, ramen is a noodle soup, Naruto admitted. But it tastes so heavenly. What's going on here? Very confused Percy asked. Thalia turned her head toward her cousin. You don't want to know. Just trust me on this, she told him. Grover asked, Percy, what did Lady Artemis talk to you? Percy took a breath and then he glanced at Nico before saying, Bianca has joined in them. What? Thalia shouted. Her expression turned from shocked surprise to outrage anger. It's all Zoe's fault. That stuck-up, no good. Who can blame her? Grover said. Eternity with Artemis. He heaved a big sigh. Thalia rolled her eyes. You satyrs. You're all in love with Artemis. Don't you get that she'll never love you back? That she's so into nature, Grover swooned. You're nuts, Thalia said. Nuts and berries, Grover said dreamily. Yeah. Could any of you please explain this in detail to us? Both of us? Naruto asked, referring to himself and Nico, who had a puzzled look on his face. Percy opened his mouth and said, I'm sorry, Nico, but. Nico, Bianca said as she came there with Zoe. I want to talk with you alone. Nico nodded and he left with his sister. Naruto Uzumaki, Zoe said. Lady Artemis wishes to speak with thee. Okay, Naruto said. He walked over her and grabbed her shoulders. He didn't give her a chance to protest as he disappeared with her without leaving any trace behind. That was so cool. Grover said. Percy nodded his head in agreement. I wish I could do that. Naruto and Zoe appeared outside a large tent, which looked no different from the other tents, all of them had silver silk, curved in a crescent around one side of a bonfire. Zoe felt a little bit dizzy, but it seemed to fade. She turned and looked at Naruto with so much anger radiating in her eyes. How dare thou touch me? Zoe? Artemis came out of her tent with a white rabbit in her hand. My lady, Zoe said, getting on her knees. Stand up, Zoe, Artemis said before turning to Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki, follow me. Naruto followed her and entered the tent. Inside of the tent was warm and comfortable. Silk rugs and pillows covered the floor. In the center, a golden brazier of fire seemed to burn without fuel or smoke. There was polished oak display stand. On it was a huge silver bow, carved to resemble gazelle horns. The walls were hung with animal pelts, black bear, tiger, and several other animals. Nice, he said, looking at animal pelts he didn't recognize. Thank you for the compliment, the goddess said. She sat down on the tent floor putting the rabbit in her lap. Join me, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto sat across from her on the tent floor. What do you want to talk about? Zoe sat down at Artemis's right. She glared at him as if he had done something wrong. Okay, seriously, what have I ever done to you? Naruto asked Zoe. You must forgive her, Artemis said. It is very rare that we would have boys in this camp. Boys are usually forbidden to have any contact with the hunters. Naruto asked, really? Yes. Naruto turned to Zoe. Then I forgive you, he said. Zoe gritted her teeth in anger. I didn't ask for thy forgiveness, Uzumaki. Whatever. Artemis didn't want to hear any argument, so she immediately changed the subject. Naruto Uzumaki, she said. Did Grover explain everything to you? Yes. He is a great guy. So I can assume that he has told you about Camp Half-Blood. Naruto gave a nod. Good, my twin brother will soon be here to take demigods and my hunters to the camp. Go with him. You've a brother? Yes, my irresponsible and annoying twin, Apollo. Naruto nodded his head again. He got to his feet and thanked her. What is so special being one of your hunters? He asked Artemis before leaving, something he had wanted to ask. Immortality, Artemis said. My hunters are immortal unless they fall in battle, which is unlikely. What's the catch? What do you mean? Something like immortality cannot come without any price. So what is it? They can't fall in love. To forswear romantic love forever. To never grow up, never get married. To be a maiden eternally. They have to take this oath to join my hunt. And Bianca agreed on this. Yes. She wanted to free of all her responsibility. What about a brother? What about him? Zoe said. He will go to camp. Unfortunately, that's the best he can do. She can see him from time to time, Artemis added. And when Nico will reach the camp, he will have the camp counselors to take care of him. It'll benefit to both of them. Naruto shook his head. It's not easy to break the bond between the people important to you ever since birth. Nico and Bianca, they are siblings. The string that binds them is thick and strong, he said, eyeing the moon goddess. Bianca hasn't realized it yet. But you'll never realize the importance of something until it's gone from you. He turned around and began to walk. I just hope you have made the right decision, because your wrong decision will not only affect Bianca, but Nico as well. Artemis wasn't sure what to say. She watched Naruto leave. My lady, Zoe said. Dawn is approaching. Zoe, break camp. Yes, my lady. Cold, Grover said as he stood shivering in the snow. Are you okay? Naruto asked. The cold did not seem to bother him. Why yes. Artemis stared into the east like she was expecting something. The sky slowly began to lighten. She muttered, about time. He's so lazy during the winter. Naruto asked, so, Grover, who is this Apollo? Lord Apollo. He is the god of light and the sun, Grover said. He wrapped his arms around himself shaking like someone with typhoid fever. He is also the god of truth and prophecy. Healing, plague, music, and poetry. Artemis warned, don't look. Not until he parks. Parks? Naruto thought. He averted his eyes and saw that everyone, except Artemis, were doing the same. The light and warmth intensified before suddenly dying out. Naruto turned. What is that thing? It is a car, Naruto, Hagoromo said. The car? Naruto asked, eyes fixed on the car. Unknown to him, it was red convertible Maserati Spider. Its metal was very hot, so it was glowing. Humans use those things to travel, and no, they cannot glow. It is a godly thing, Hagoromo explained before the blonde could ask him another question. The driver got out, smiling. He looked about 17 or 18. The guy had sandy hair and good looks. He was tall and wore jeans and loafers and a sleeveless t-shirt. Little sister? Apollo called. He smiled brightly, showing his blinding white teeth. What's up? You never call. You never write. I was getting worried. Artemis eyed. I'm fine, Apollo. And I am not your little sister. Hey, I was born first. We're twins. How many millennia do we have to argue? So what's up? Apollo interrupted. Got the girls with you, I see. You all need some tips on archery. Artemis gritted her teeth. I need a favor. I have some hunting to do, alone. I need you to take my companions to Camp Half-Blood. Sure, sis. The sun god raised his hands in a stop-everything gesture. I feel a haiku coming on. The hunters all groaned. He cleared his throat and held up one hand dramatically. Green grass breaks through snow. Artemis didn't really want to hear one more poem. I am so cool. He grinned, waiting for applause. That last line was only 4 syllables, Artemis said. Apollo frowned. Was it? Yes. What about I am so big-headed? No, that's 6 syllables. He started muttering to himself. Man, the sun god is weird, but at least he is not as weird as Bushy Brow and his sensei, Naruto thought, not really listening to Zoe Nightshade's expiation. Zoe had turned to demigods and was saying, Lord Apollo has been going through this haiku phase ever since he visited Japan. 'Tis not as bad as the time he visited Limerick. If I'd had to hear one more poem that started with, there once was a goddess from Sparta. I've got it. Apollo announced. I am so awesome. That's 5 syllables. He bowed, looking very pleased with himself. And now, sis. Transportation for the hunters, you say. Good timing. I was just about ready to roll. These demigods will also need a ride, Artemis said. Some of Chiron's campers. No problem. Apollo checked them out. His eyes fell on Naruto. Who are you? Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said, smiled. Brother, Artemis said. He is from the elemental nations. Whoa, the elemental nations, Apollo said. He snapped his head toward Naruto. You are a ninja. Naruto said, yeah. Cool. Ninja? Percy said. Yeah, that place is filled with super powerful ninjas, Apollo explained. Never heard about it, Thalia said. Because it is in another dimension, Apollo said. Thalia gave him "Are you serious?" look. Brother, Artemis said finally. You should get going. Oh, right, Apollo said. We'd better load up, huh? Ride only goes one way west. And if you miss it, you miss it. He turned to the Maserati, which would seat 2 people max. There were about 20 of them. Cool car, Nico said. Thanks, kid, Apollo said. But how will we all fit? Oh. Apollo seemed to notice the problem for the first time. Well, yeah. I hate to change out of sports car mode, but I suppose. He took out his car keys and beeped the security alarm button. Chirp, chirp. For a moment, the car glowed brightly again. When the glare died, the Maserati had been replaced by one of those turtle-top shuttle buses which used for school basketball games. Right, he said. Everybody in. Zoe ordered the hunters to start loading. She picked up her camping pack and Apollo said, "Here, sweetheart. Let me get that." Zoe recoiled. Her eyes flashed murderously. "Brother," Artemis chided. "You do not help my hunters. You do not look at, talk to, or flirt with my hunters. And you do not call them sweetheart." Apollo spread his hands. "Sorry. I forgot. Hey, sis, where are you off to, anyway?" "Hunting," Artemis said. "It's none of your business." "I'll find out. I see all. Know all." Artemis snorted. "Just drop them off, Apollo. And no messing around." "No, no. I never mess around." Artemis rolled her eyes and then looked at her hunters. "I will see you by winter solstice. Zoe, you are in charge of the hunters. Do well. Do as I would do." Zoe straightened. "Yes, my lady." Artemis knelt and touched the ground as if looking for tracks. When she rose, she looked troubled. So much danger. The beast must be found. She sprinted toward the woods and melted into the snow and shadows. Apollo turned and grinned, jangling the car keys on his finger. "So," he said. "Who wants to drive?" "That was one hell of a ride," Naruto said, stepping out of the sun bus. "Yeah," Apollo said, agreeing with other blonde. Apollo had let Thalia to drive his sun bus, which was a big mistake. The daughter of Zeus had driven the bus at 1,000 miles an hour speed, scaring mostly all passengers. On the way to the camp, she melted snow off the trees and the roofs and the lawns, before setting them on fire. Finally, that ride ended with Thalia slamming the bus into the Camp Half-Blood canoe lake, making a huge floosh. And sending several frightened naiads scrambling out of the water with half-woven wicker baskets. "Take care, sweethearts." Apollo called after the hunters who were heading off toward the cabins. He winked at Percy. "Watch out for those prophecies, Percy. I'll see you soon." "What do you mean?" Percy said, confused as usual. Instead of answering, Apollo hopped back in the bus. "Later, Thalia," he called. "And you too, Ninja Man." He closed the doors and revved the engine. The bus turned back into the red Maserati and took off in a blast of heat. It soared over the woods, glowing brighter and climbing higher until it disappeared in a ray of sunlight. "Naruto," Thalia called. "Come on. I'll introduce you to Chiron." Naruto began to follow her. On the way, he saw many fancy cabins decorated with tiny flickering lights. He also noticed how empty the camp was looked. "This is the big house," Thalia said. She had led him toward a large house that was decorated with strings of red and yellow fireballs, which warmed the porch but didn't seem to catch anything on fire. "It serves as the main administrative building at Camp Half-Blood." Inside, flames crackled in the hearth. 2 men, one of them was in a wheelchair, were playing a quiet game of cards in the parlor. The man on the wheelchair smiled when he saw the demigods. He had brown hair, bushy eyebrows, intense brown eyes and a scruffy beard. He wore a fuzzy sweater with a hoofprint design on it and had a blanket on his lap that almost hid his wheelchair completely. He said, "Percy. Thalia." "Ah, and they are." "Nico di Angelo," Percy said. "He and his sister are half-bloods." "And Chiron," Thalia pointed at Naruto. "This is Naruto Uzumaki." Chiron breathed a sigh of relief. "You succeeded, then." He looked at Naruto. "And you even got another one." "Technically, I got them," Naruto said. "How?" "Well," Naruto said. He began to tell his story in short. When he was done, the man next to Chiron spoke first time, "So you are from the elemental nations." Naruto turned to the man, who wore a neon orange leopard skin warm-up suit and purple running shoes. You are." "Mr. D, the camp director," Chiron said. Mr. D or Dionysus was the Greek god of grape harvest, wine, madness, parties, and ecstasy as well as theater. He had a chubby face, a red nose, and curly hair so black it looks purple, and watery, blue, bloodshot eyes. "Nice to meet you," Naruto said. "And by the way, nice suit. Orange is my favorite color." Mr. D looked at Percy. "You should learn something from him, Peter Johnson," he said. Percy said, "It is Percy Jackson, sir." He hated this man. He always called him by the wrong names. Where can I get more information on the Greek gods? Naruto asked. Just then, Grover trotted into the room, grinning like crazy. He had a black eye and red lines on his face that looked like a slap mark. The hunters are all moved in. Jiren frowned. The hunters, eh? I see we have much to talk about. He thought about something before looking back at Grover. Grover, please show Mr. Uzumaki the way of our library. He glanced at Naiko, and take our young friend, Naiko, to the den and show him our orientation film. But oh, right. Yes sir. Orientation film? Naiko asked. Is it G or PG? Cause Bianca is kinda strict. It's PG-13, Grover said. Cool. Naiko happily followed him out of the room. Naruto smiled as the kid reminded him of Konohamaru. He went after them. Jiren's smile melted as he noted something wrong. What's wrong? Where is Annabeth? Oh, dear, Mr. D said in a bored voice, not another one lost. What do you mean? Dahlia asked. Who else is lost? This is our library, Naruto, Grover said. You can find all information about Greek gods here. Thank Grover, Naruto said as he walked into the library. The library was huge with marble, wood and book-filled shelves everywhere. There were a few tables, but that wasn't what he was looking at. He took a deep breath. He could smell books, new and old, go through the library. It was stuffy and incredibly warm in the library, to the point of if you wore a jacket you felt like you had to take it off or you would suffocate. This didn't bother him at all though. I hate reading, he muttered himself. Yes, but this is the only thing that I know will help you to learn more about this world, Hagoromo said. Yeah, Naruto replied. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind, causing him to smile. He formed a familiar T-shaped hand seal. No, you can't use your clones for this. Why? There was a long pause before Hagoromo spoke telepathically again. Naruto, the easiest way is not always the best way. But it will save my time. Yes, it will, but I want to see how much patience you have. Why? If you complete this task, I'll teach you how to wield a sword. You know Kenjutsu, old man. Yes, who you think taught Indra and Asura? Then you're on. I will complete this task in no time. With so much confidence, Naruto walked toward the bookshelves. He took one of the books out and opened it only to find it was written in a different language. Huh? I can read this language, but how? He said. Confusion was written all over his face. Grover walked into the library carrying a large tray of food on it. He looked around and saw Naruto sitting on the floor while his back leaning against one of the bookshelves. He had a huge black book, which cover faded with age, on his hand. Naruto, the satyr said. I brought you food. Naruto looked up. He closed the book and put it aside. Thanks, he said, taking the tray from his hand. Wow, so many books. Grover said, looking at the heaps of books scattered around Naruto. You must be tired after reading all those books, right? Not really. Your new anatomy and Hashirama cells that Obito implanted into your body to save your life have been responsible for your newly increased stamina, Hagoromo said. What is this? Naruto said, picking up a glass filled with a strange golden-colored liquid. Ambrosia, Grover said, smiled. It will refresh your energy. Just drink it. Naruto took a sip of the golden liquid. It tastes like Ichikura's ramen, he said with stars in his eyes. He immediately drank the remaining ambrosia in one gulp and let out a long, satisfied sigh. Oh, man. That was tasty. Grover's sweat dropped. I knew you'd like it. Thanks for the meal, Grover, Naruto said. Taking a bite of apple, he savored the sweetness in his mouth. Naruto, have you found any clue about your mother's identity? Huh? Naruto said with a look of confusion on his face. What are you talking about? I know my mother is Kashina Uzumaki. I'm talking about your mother's godly identity. I'm not really looking for it. Naruto took another bite of the apple. Then why are you reading all those books? Grover asked, motioning toward the books. I just want to know more about Greek gods and this world. Oh. There was a moment of silence before Naruto spoke. So how is Naiko? He is fine, Grover said. But why did you ask that? Because I can sense his emotions from here. From outside, he looks fine, but from the inside, he is sad, angry. He is deeply hurt by Bianca's decision of joining Artemis's hunters. What's wrong in her division? Grover said. Then a dreamy, faraway look appeared in his eyes. I can only imagine eternity with Artemis. I have no comment on that, Naruto deadpanned. Anyway, what's that noise outside? Oh, right, you don't know about it, Grover said. The campers are getting ready for the tomorrow night's Capture the Flag game between Camp Half-Blood and Hunters. The Capture the Flag game? It is a long-time tradition in Camp Half-Blood. When Grover was done, Naruto said, interesting. He finished off the rest of the apple. I wish I could participate in the game, but I'm kind of busy right now. He picked up the book, opened and turned to the page he had been reading. Okay. Grover picked up the tray and left. Now, where was I? Naruto said to himself. He found the line he had been reading. Zeus is the king of the gods, the god of sky and weather, law, order, and justice. He has at least half-dozen kids in each century, Hagoromo said. Yeah. If Pervy Sage was still alive today, Zeus would have been his most favorite god. Grover and Percy sat in the meadow watching the satyrs chase the wood nymphs through the snow and discussing about the dream that Percy had seen the last night. The dream was about their missing friend Annabeth and traitorous demigod son of Hermes, Luke Castellan. Grover started twirling his finger in his shaggy leg fur. A cave ceiling collapsed on her? He asked. Yeah. What the heck does that mean? Percy asked. Grover shook his head. I don't know. But after what Zoe dreamed. Whoa. What do you mean? Zoe had a dream like that. I don't know exactly. About 3 in the morning she came to the big house and demanded to talk to Chiron. She looked really panicked. Wait, how do you know this? Grover blushed. I was sort of camped outside the Artemis cabin. What for? Just to be, you know, near them. You're a stalker with hooves. I am not. Anyway, I followed her to the big house and hid in a bush and watched the whole thing. She got real upset when Argus wouldn't let her in. It was kind of dangerous scene. Argus was the head of security for camp, a big blonde man with eyes all over his body. He rarely showed himself unless something serious was going on. What did she say? Percy asked. Grover grimaced. Well, she starts talking really old-fashioned when she gets upset, so it was kind of hard to understand. But something about Artemis being in trouble and needing the hunters. And then she called Argus a boil-brained lout. I think that's a bad thing. And then he called her. Whoa, wait. How could Artemis be in trouble? Well, finally Chiron came out in his pajamas and his horsetail and curlers and… He wears curlers in his tail. Grover covered his mouth. Sorry, Percy apologized. Go on. Well, Zoe said she needed permission to leave camp immediately. Chiron refused. He reminded Zoe that the hunters were supposed to stay here until they received orders from Artemis. And she said, Grover gulped. She said, how are we to get orders from Artemis if Artemis is lost? What do you mean lost? Like she needs directions. No. I think she meant gone. Taken. Kidnapped. Kidnapped. Percy tried to get his mind around that idea. How would you kidnap an immortal goddess? Is that even possible? Well, yeah. I mean, it happened to Persephone. But she was like the goddess of flowers. Grover looked offended. Springtime. Whatever. Artemis is a lot more powerful than that. Who could kidnap her? And why? Grover shook his head miserably. I don't know. Kronos. He can't be that powerful already. Can he? The last time they had seen Kronos, he'd been in tiny pieces. Thousands of years ago, after the big Titan god war, the gods had sliced him to bits with his own scythe and scattered his remains in Tartarus. They didn't see how he could physically overcome Artemis if he was still like a pile of evil bark mulch. I don't know, Grover said. I think somebody would know if Kronos had reformed. The gods would be more nervous. But still, it's weird, you having a nightmare the same night as Zoe. It's almost like they're connected, Percy said. Over in the frozen meadow, a satyr skidded on his hooves as he chased after a red-heated tree nymph. She giggled and held out her arms as he ran toward her. At the last second, she turned into a Scotch pine and he kissed the trunk at top speed. Ah, love, Grover said dreamily. Percy thought about Zoe's nightmare, which she'd had only a few hours after him. I've got to talk to Zoe. Before you do, Grover took something out of his coat pocket. It was a 3-fold display like a travel brochure. You remember what you said about how it was weird the hunters just happened to show up at Westover Hall? I think they might have been scouting us. Scouting us? What do you mean? He gave Percy the brochure. It was about the hunters of Artemis. The front read, a wise choice for your future. Inside were pictures of young maidens doing hunter stuff, chasing monsters, shooting bows. There were captions like, health benefits, immortality and what it means for you. And a boy free tomorrow. I found that in Annabeth's backpack, Grover said. Percy stared at him curiously. I don't understand. Well, it seems to me maybe Annabeth was thinking about joining. Before they could continue their conversation, they heard some girly giggles. They turned their heads to see some girls from Aphrodite cabin walking toward a particular direction. Their ears caught some words like hot eye, new hot eye in the camp. Where are they going? Grover asked. Naruto was using the small break he had gotten after reading a few dozen books to do his daily workout. His orange jacket was lying on the ground with the ninja pouches lying beside it. The weather was freezing cold but didn't bother him at all. In the black sleeveless t-shirt, he was performing the frog kata that Fukasaku had taught him in the sage training. This style had a good range of different katas, with many involving speed, power and balance. Girls, can you see his muscles? One of the girls asked with a dreamy look in her eyes as she and her sisters watched Naruto's hard workout. Yeah. Naruto threw a few volleys of rapid-fire punches and kicks into the empty air. I can watch him train a whole day, night. He is hot. But who is he? Naruto, a male voice said. The voice was quite familiar to them. They looked back and saw Grover and Percy. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, Grover said. Girls, I think he's done, one girl said. Naruto bent down to strap his last ninja pouch to his right thigh, then stood up and put on a jacket. He turned to leave, but found himself surrounded by half-dozen beautiful girls. What can I do for you, girls? He said. Hungry look in their eyes was making him feel uneasy. I've got a bad feeling about this. Then all hell broke loose as he was bombarded with various questions. How old are you? Where are you from? Do you have a girlfriend? Naruto thought, now I know how Sasuke felt. Being surrounded by horny girls who are stripping you with their eyes is truly terrifying. Maybe, the real reason he ran away from the leaf was his fangirls. Before the girls could move further than they already had, he acted like a real ninja that he was. The lucky guy, Grover said. Percy nodded his head. The cloud of smoke suddenly enveloped Grover. As it cleared, Naruto stood in place of him. Yo. Naruto, how? Where is Grover? Percy asked. Just a few moments ago, his best friend was there. Naruto pointed at the girls. Percy turned and a large sweat drop appeared on the back of his head. He saw 6 beautiful girls tightly hugging very blushing Grover without realizing they weren't hugging Naruto, but a stare. Lucky, he thought with a small jealousy. Sorry, gotta go before they know, Naruto said, and his body flickered out from there. Grover, what are you doing here? One girl asked when she saw the stare, not blonde-haired Hot Eye. Where is that Hot Eye? Yeah, where is he, Grover? They left him lying on the snow-covered ground dazed and walked away to find the blonde Hot Eye. Are you okay, G-Man? Percy asked, walking over his best friend. I was in heaven, Grover said. He laid back down on the snowy ground. Naruto groaned as he pushed books away from himself. He crossed his arms before dropping his head onto the table. Are you alright? Hagoromo asked. My head is spinning after reading all about Greek gods and those old titans, Naruto muttered under his breath. Good. Huh? Good, you proved me wrong. I thought your patience would run out soon after reading 2-3 book. Now, get ready for your first sword lesson. Naruto's eyes widened. Do you mean? Yes. Naruto stood up with a huge smile and yelled, yes. He cheered happily. Now, make a clone and leave him here to continue read about the Greek gods and titans, Hagoromo said, smiling. Naruto formed his hands into a T-shaped seal. Shadow clone jutsu. A single clone popped into existence. Read the books about Greek gods and titans, he commanded. The clone folded his arms. And would I do that? Because I'm the original, Naruto said, pointing the thumb at himself. Naruto's clone grumbled something under his breath before he picked up the book Naruto had been reading. Naruto shook his head at his clone's behavior and then flickered out of there. Naruto's clone put the book back on the table. He smirked and made a single hand seal. Boss didn't say I couldn't get a clone's help. Another clone appeared beside him in a puff of smile. Go and read the books on Greek gods and titans. Do it yourself. You're not the boss, the newly made clone said. But I am senior, so listen to your senior, junior. Whatever. Tyron's hoof thundered on the pavilion floor. Heroes. He called. You know the rules. The creek is the boundary line. Blue team camp Half-Blood shall take the west woods. Hunters of Artemis red team shall take the east woods. I will serve as referee and battlefield medic. No intentional maiming, please. All magic items are allowed. To your positions. He watched as blue and red teams went to guard their respective flags. So you need your opponent team's flag to win the game. The voice caught Chiron off guard. He jerked his head around to glance back over his shoulder. Naruto was standing next to him. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki, did you come here to participate in the game? Naruto shook his head. Nah, I just came here to watch the game, he said. His eyes were on the game. A clone has a small lifespan. He also deserves a small time for himself. I just hope boss will not find about my action too soon. Don't know why, but I suddenly have the urge to smack my clone, Naruto muttered while he performed some basic sword kata. The style Sage had instructed him was an elegant style and blazing fast. It focused on speed and centrifugal force to deal damage. Good. You've speed and power, Hagoromo said. Naruto moved swiftly through the moves and smoothly like water gliding off the leaves of a tree. With a black sword in his hand, he practiced tirelessly. One swing after another. But you need to work on your footing and balance, but most importantly, you need a real sword. Naruto finished the sword kata and stood up straight, sticking the tip of the sword into the ground. Where can I get a real sword that will fit perfectly into my hand? He asked, probably himself, shifting the sword he had used to practice back into the truth-seeking balls that slowly disintegrated into nothingness. He looked left, sensing the presence of somebody being there, and saw an 8-year-old girl. She had long mousy brown hair and warm and cozy eyes of red fire. She wore a simple brown robe with a scarf wrapped around her head. She pointed at the pouch that strapped around his right thigh and said, "Your answer is in your ninja pouch." "Who are you?" "Hestia, the goddess of the hearth." He looked her up and down consideringly before asking, "Do all goddess like to take the form of young girls?" The goddess of heart raised her eyebrow. "Your personality is much different than your both parents." He was a bit taken aback by her statement. "How did you know about my both parents?" he asked. "Because I've never told anyone about my dad. I'm the only person other than your parents know about your true parentage." "So who are my parents?" "It's not my place to tell you that, but I'm pretty sure you will meet them soon." "Okay," he said, slight disappointment in the voice. How much he told himself or others that he was happy with knowing the identities of his parents' mortal forms, it wasn't meant he didn't want to know about their immortal identities. "But what does it mean my personality is much different than my parents'?" "Personality that your parents had in their mortal form is not as same as in their immortal form." "Why is that?" "Ask your parents when you meet them." There was a brief silence between them after that. Then Hestia spoke up again. "You are unique." "Huh? You've a selfless heart, which seems to be so rare nowadays, especially in gods like us. Don't ever change, stay as you are." Naruto didn't know what to say on this. Thanks." Hestia gave a nod before she faded out from there. Another weird goddess, Naruto thought. He dug his hand into the pouch. "Huh? What is this?" He pulled out a scroll and rolled open. "It is from Itachi." He silently read it. "You will need this in the future. Uchiha Itachi." End of the scroll had a storage seal. Naruto channeled his chakra through the seal. Suddenly there was a brilliant flash of light and a puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, there was a familiar sword lying on the ground. "That snake freak sword," Naruto said as he recognized a sword of the most infamous criminal, Orochimaru. "The legendary sword Kusanagi no Tsurugi," Hagoromo said. He was also quite familiar with the sword. Kusanagi no Tsurugi was a double-edged chan with a golden hilt. Her blade was sharp and coated in the poison of unmatched potency. Kusanagi was said to be able to cleave through almost anything. With all of this, she was truly a beautiful, deadly piece of art. Naruto stepped forward and picked up Kusanagi with the hilt. He examined her closer. She was light in his hand, perfectly balanced. He took several practice swings. Good. Now I only need to find a way to carry her unnoticed." As if Kusanagi heard Naruto, she changed into small white snake form and curled around his wrist. The snake felt cold, but neither damp nor slimy. Then he felt nothing at all. The snake melted into his skin. The serpent became a ferocious multicolored tattoo with her grimly fanged business end on the back of his right hand. "I love the sword." The hunters cheered as both teams converged on the creek. Chiron and Naruto appeared out of the woods. "The hunters win," Chiron announced without pleasure. Then he muttered, for the 56th time in a row. "Perseus Jackson." Thalia yelled, storming toward Percy. Naruto pinched his nose. She smelled like rotten eggs. He turned his "Oh, where can I buy fart arrows?" The hunter gave him her famous heated glare before she turned her head in the other direction. "She needs to loosen up a little," he thought. Thalia was so mad that blue sparks flickered on her armor. Everybody cringed and backed up because of her shield aegis. Percy took all his willpower not to cower. "What in the name of the gods were you thinking?" she bellowed. Percy clenched his fists. "I got the flag, Thalia." He shook the hunter's flag in her face. "I saw a chance and I took it. I was at their base." Thalia yelled. "But the flag was gone. If you hadn't butted in, we would have won. You had too many on you." "Oh, so it's my fault." "I didn't say that." "Arg." Thalia pushed Percy and a shock went through his body that blew him backward 10 feet into the water. Some of the campers gasped. A couple of the hunters stifled laughs. "Sorry," Thalia said, turning pale. "I didn't mean to," Percy roared in anger. A wave was erupted from the creek, blasting into Thalia's face and dousing her from head to toe. Percy stood up. "Yeah," he growled. "I didn't mean to, either." Thalia was breathing heavily. "Enough," Chiron ordered. But Thalia held out her spear. "Do you want some, seaweed brain?" Percy returned, "Bring it on, Pinnacone face." He raised his sword riptide. Both demigods were only strides away, their weapons raised ready to clash. Before they could act, they found themselves lying face down on the snowy ground. They tried to get up but couldn't. "No wonder you lost," Naruto said while holding down Percy and Thalia to the ground. "You've shitty teamwork." "Whoa. I didn't even see him move," one camper said. Then murmurs broke out amongst the campers and hunters. "Mr. Uzumaki, thank you for stopping this unnecessary fight," Chiron said, approaching toward them. "You're welcome." Naruto got to his feet, releasing both demigods from his strong grip. Thalia glared at Naruto before she went to pick up her sphere. Percy just stood there silently as he saw something in the woods. He lost his anger. Thalia turned to see what he was looking at. Something was approaching toward them. It was shrouded in a murky green mist, but as it got closer, the campers and hunters gasped. "This is impossible," Chiron said, sounding nervous. She has never left the attic. Never. The Oracle of Delphi shuffled forward until she stood in the center of the group. She was the withered mummy, not the wrapped in cloth kind, but a human female body shriveled to a husk who had the spirit of Delphi inside her. She wore a tie-dyed sundress, lots of beaded necklaces, and a headband over long black hair. The skin of her face was thin and leathery over her skull, and her eyes were glassy white slits, as if the real eyes had been replaced by marbles. Mist curled around everyone's feet, turning the snow a sickly shade of green. None of one dared move. Then her voice hissed inside their heads. "I am the spirit of Delphi," the voice said. "Speaker of the prophecies of Phobos Apollo, slayer of the mighty Python." The oracle turned unmistakably towards O Nightshade. "Approach, seek her, and ask." Zo swallowed. "What must I do to help my goddess?" The oracle's mouth opened, and green mist poured out. Everyone saw the vague image of a mountain and a girl standing at the barren peak. It was Artemis, but she was wrapped in chains, fettered to the rocks. She was kneeling, her hands raised, as if to fend off an attacker, and it looked like she was in pain. The oracle spoke. "6 shall be chosen for the quest. But 1 shall join them late. They shall go west to the goddess in chains. 1 shall be lost in the land without rain. The bane of Olympus shows the trail. United as one, hunters and campers shall prevail. The Titan's curse must one withstand. 1 shall perish by a parent's hand. Lost son shall rise to break the ties of fate. And he shall save others before too late." The mist swirled and retreated like a great green serpent into the oracle's mouth. She sat down on a rock and became as still as she'd been in the attic. "I'll have to inform boss of this," Naruto's clone threw. He looked around and saw that everyone's eyes were focused on the oracle. "This is my chance." He moved back slightly away from the campers and hunters and popped out of existence without anyone noticing. After a lot of discussion and lots of argument, the council of cabin leaders decided 3 campers and 3 hunters together would go on the quest to rescue the goddess Artemis before the winter solstice. As everyone expected, Zo, the lieutenant of Artemis, immediately stood up. "I shall go, of course, and I will take Phoebe. She is our best tracker," she declared. "The big girl who likes to hit people on the head." Travis Stoll, a boy with mischievous face, asked cautiously. Zo nodded. "The one who put the arrows in my helmet?" Connor Stoll added. "Yes," Zo snapped. "Why?" Travis Stoll and Connor Stoll, Stoll brother, were tall and skinny boys with brown hair that hanged in their blue eyes. Both boys were head counselors of the Hermes cabin. Like most of the other children of Hermes, they had elfish features, upturned eyebrows, a sarcastic smile and a gleam in his eyes, like he was ready to drop a firecracker down your shirt. "Oh, nothing," Travis said. "Just that we have a t-shirt for her from the camp store." He held up a big silver t-shirt that said Artemis the Moon Goddess, Fall Hunting Tour 2002, with a huge list of national parks and stuff underneath. "It's a collector's item." She was admiring it. "You want to give it to her?" Zo sighed and took the t-shirt. "As I was saying, I will take Phoebe. And I wished Bianca to go." Bianca looked stunned. "Me? But, I'm so new. I wouldn't be any good." "You will do fine," Zo insisted. "There is no better way to prove thyself. Who made you the lieutenant of Artemis?" All eyes turned toward Naruto, who crossed to one of the chairs and sat down. Zo's face turned red with anger. "How dare thee? I mean no offense, but this quest is an equivalent to S-rank mission of my world, Zo, and Bianca is not ready for this. She has little to no fighting experience. If anything happens to her, Nico will be the one hurt most. I'll protect her." "Yeah, I can see that." Naruto had up the t-shirt that Stoll brothers had given to her. He had somehow managed to steal it. Under everyone's nose. He brought it near his nose and sniffed it. "I can smell blood and acid," Hagoromo said through their mental link. Naruto threw the t-shirt toward Chiron. "It smells really bad." When Chiron smelled the t-shirt, his eyes widened. "Scent or blood?" He snapped his head toward Stoll brothers. "Boys, you have now crossed your limit." His angry eyes were locked on both brothers, making them nervous, making them sweat under his gaze. Naruto locked his eyes onto Zo. "How will you protect Bianca and at the same time face the opponent that your goddess has failed to defeat? That is none of thy business. You're stubborn, Zo. That's why I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." Zo turned to Dionysus. "He is a boy. He cannot travel with us." Mr. D looked bored while he was reading a magazine. "Well, I can't say anything on this. He is not a camper," he said, flipping through the magazine pages. This surprised everyone. It was the first time he had taken someone's side. Now that's surprising, Chiron thought. Then he said, we've 4 volunteers now. Anyone else? His eyes met Percy's. Me? Grover stood up so fast he bumped the ping pong table. He brushed cracker crumbs and a ping pong ball scraps off his lap. Anything to help Artemis. Zoe wrinkled her nose. I think not, Satyr. You are not even a half-blood. But he is a camper, Thalia said. And he's got a satyr's senses and woodland magic. Can you play a tracker's song yet, Grover? Absolutely. Zoe wavered. Very well, she said. And the last camper. I'll go. Thalia stood and looked around, daring anyone to question her. Whoa, wait a sec, Percy said when he suddenly realized that they'd reached the number 6 and he wasn't in the group. I want to go too. Oh, Grover said, suddenly aware of the problem. Whoa, yeah, I forgot. Percy has to go. I didn't mean, I'll stay. Percy should go in my place. He cannot, Zoe said. He is a boy. I won't have hunters traveling with another boy. Percy opened his mouth to complain, but Naruto didn't give him a chance. He can come with us. Sorry, but he cannot. Your group already has reached its limit, Chiron said. Naruto said, you can't count me in this group. I'm neither a hunter nor a camper. He is right, Mr. D said, surprising everyone again. What's wrong with him today? Why is he taking Naruto's side? Chiron wondered. He couldn't go against a god's decision. The quest is for Artemis. Thalia, Percy and Grover will accompany Zoe, Bianca, Phoebe. He looked at Naruto, and Naruto. You shall leave at first light. And may the gods, he glanced at Dionysus, present company included, we hope, be with you. Once everyone had left out, the only remaining people inside were Naruto, Chiron and Dionysus. Naruto walked toward the wine god. He took a scroll and unsealed 5 sake bottles. A deal is deal. These are bottles of Mount Myaboku fire sake, strongest sake known to man and toads, he said to Dionysus. Good, Mr. T said. He waved his hand and the bottles were gone. Chiron finally understood everything. You bribed him to get him on your side, he said. It wasn't a bribe. It was an offering, Naruto said, smirking inside. Chiron turned to Dionysus. What about your restriction, Mr. D? Mr. D smirked. Those bottles are for a special occasion. Naruto opened his eyes and saw white empty space all around him. There was nothing else, except one man. He was tall and handsome. He had blue eyes and blonde hair the same color, but it was wilder. Dad, Naruto said. Hey, son. Minato gasped from the sharp pain in his stomach where Naruto had punched him. This is for not telling me about you and mom being gods. This is unfair. You didn't hit your mother when you met her, but you hit me twice. Why? Life is not always fair, Dad. Minato shook his head and then smiled. How are you, my son? Naruto folded his arms. I'm still mad on you and mom. Smile on Minato's face melted. We're sorry, Naruto. The elemental nations doesn't come under our rules. It left us very few options to help you. But we did everything. I don't remember anything you and mom have done for me. Who do you think gave you all those birthday gifts, free Ichikura ramen coupons and monthly allowances till you become a genin? I thought it was Gramps. It was us, Naruto. Naruto thought about it for a minute and nodded. Dad, are you here to tell me who you and mom really are? He asked. There is a time for everything, and I believe this is not the right time. Yeah, right. Life is what it is. It is not always fair. We don't always get what we want and think we deserve. Naruto gave him a deadpan look. You are using my own words on me. Minato smirked. Yeah, playback is sweet, he said. Anyway, how are you taking all things that suddenly happened in your life? I can't tell how I truly feel about everything. Earth is different from the elemental nations in many ways. It has more than 1,000 languages and cultures, advanced technology, and many more. Then there are Greek gods, like you and mom. God of the sun, goddess of the moon, goddess of love, god of super pervert. Wait a minute, what was the last one? God of super pervert. Who is he? Zeus. Minato nearly fell flat on his face. Naruto, you shouldn't say something like this about Zeus. He is the king of the gods, the god of sky and weather, law, order, and justice. He is also one who has most demigod children, Naruto pointed out. But why are you defending him? Minato sighed. Let's change the topic, shall we? He got a nod from Naruto. I've got something for you. He held his hand up and a golden light proceeded. When it cleared, he was holding a golden egg with a red ancient Greek marking over its shell. It was about the size of an ostrich egg, but was spilling off a golden red aura. Happy birthday. Naruto took the egg from his father's hand. Thanks for the gift, but what am I going to do with a big egg, he asked. Can't you see it? Naruto locked his eyes on the egg. His eyes shifted into his dual dijutsu. He finally saw what he had been unable to see before. Raw chakra. The creature made of raw chakra inside the egg. Do you like your gift? Yeah. Naruto eyes still fixed on the egg. But how am I going to carry it? In a flash, the egg changed into a small golden pearl. Never mind. Minato smiled and ruffled his son's hair. He was still taller than him. Now, wake up, or you'll be late for the quest of saving Artemis. His son gave him a nod and then faded from the existence. TCH, I don't understand why they're taking the troublemaker son of Poseidon with them. You always have a problem with demigod children of Poseidon and Hades. You're the last person I want to hear this from, and you know it, Kushina. Minato turned to see his wife. You literally hate almost every demigod. Kushina folded her arm and said, I blame you for that. Where are they? Zoe fumed in anger while she waited on Half-Blood Hill for the last two members of the group. Sorry, I'm late. The voice, close behind her, made Zoe almost jump. She whirled around and glared at Naruto. Don't do that again, Uzumaki. And why are they late? What? Naruto asked, confused. Why are you late? Thalia repeated Zoe's question. She didn't want to waste another couple of minutes on a useless argument. Oh, Naruto looked at Zoe, sorry, I got lost on the road of life. What kind of excuse is this? A very good one, Naruto said, smiling. He looked at the hunter who had asked him that question. She was beefy and big and had ginger-colored hair. You must be Phoebe. It's nice to meet you. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Phoebe turned her eyes away with a look of disgust upon her face. Naruto sighed. What's wrong with all hunters? He looked around and tried to find the son of Poseidon. Where is Percy? He asked. I'm afraid, Chiron said with a sigh, I've looked everywhere, but I didn't find him. We can't afford to waste any more time searching one irresponsible boy, Zoe said. Grover wanted to say something in defense of his best friend, but she didn't let him. Our goddess needs us. We must leave immediately. Chiron said, I got the keys to the van right here. So after a final farewell and a warning from Zoe concerning her hunter's safety, the quest for Artemis officially began with 6 quest takers piling into a fairly nice-looking van. Our 5 out of 6 quest takers were facing the first problem in the quest of Artemis. Zoe Nightshade's worst driving. She was driving like a maniac on the road, swerving through traffic like a crazy person looking to die. She passed a car with other cars coming head-on and just making it back in the lane. Hey. Watch where you're going, one driver leaned out his car window and yelled at her. Stupid, man, Zoe grumbled under her breath. Seeing the DC lane approaching, she shifted gears and went into a turn. The car's rear end skidded before allowing the momentum to turn it in a glide. She stamped down on the accelerator and sped up to 100 miles per hour. Slow down, Nightshade. Thalia screamed. Finally, the van started to slow down. It crossed the Potomac River into central Washington. "Oh, we're there," Grover said. Driving across the street, Zoe pulled into a parking space adjacent to one of the big buildings lining the mall. Naruto leaned out the window. He saw the big building that said National Air and Space Museum. "The Smithsonian," Thalia muttered. She opened the door of the van to get out on land. Naruto got out as well. His eyes lingered on the large building in front of them. "The mist is thick today," Phoebe commented with a frown. She knelt down and ran her hand through the snow. "And the power is shifted. Something powerful came through here." Naruto closed his eyes and let his senses roam free. "We're not alone. 2 strong taints are in there along with 1 familiar," he said. His eyes were open but fixed in a particular direction. "Percy is here, but who is near him? That energy signature feels familiar." Invisibility cap on, Percy's eyes were on the black sedan that had been following his friends. He watched the door of the black sedan open. A man with gray hair and a military buzz cut got out. He was wearing dark shades and a black overcoat. The guy took out his mobile phone and said something into it. Then he looked around, making sure the coast was clear. When he turned toward him, Percy froze as he recognized his face. It was Dr. Thorne, the Manticore from Westover Hall. If he has survived that fall from the cliff, then, Percy thought, and he followed Thorne. Thorne climbed the steps of the Museum of Natural History. There was a big sign on the door said closed for private event. Percy followed Dr. Thorne inside, through a huge chamber full of mastodons and dinosaur skeletons. 2 guards stood outside. They opened the doors for Thorne. Percy had to sprint to get inside before they closed them again. Inside, what Percy saw was so terrible. He was in a huge round room with a balcony ringing the 2nd level. At least a dozen mortal guards stood on the balcony, plus 2 monsters reptilian women with double snake trunks instead of legs. Scythian Dracony. That wasn't the worst of it. Standing between the snake women was his old enemy Luke Castellan. He was a demigod son of Hermes and traitor to the Olympians. He looked terrible. His skin was pale and his blonde hair looked almost gray, as if he'd aged 10 years in just a few months. Percy watched the general, that's what Luke and Thorne called him. He was tall and muscular, with light brown skin and slicked back dark hair. He wore an expensive brown silk suit. He had a brutal face, huge shoulders, and hands that could snap a flagpole in half. His eyes were like stone. The general ordered another mortal guard to bring the Tyrannosaurus's teeth after his first attempt to bring a terrible monster back to life failed in a very embarrassing way. The guard ran off to carry out his orders. Imbeciles, the general muttered. This is why I don't use mortals, Luke said. They are unreliable. They are weak-minded, easily bought, and violent, the general said. I love them. A minute later, the guard hustled into the room with his hands full of large pointy teeth. Excellent, the general said. He climbed onto the balcony railing and jumped down 20 feet. Where he landed, the marble floor cracked under his leather shoes. He stood, wincing, and rubbed his shoulders. Curse my stiff neck. Another hot pad, sir, a guard asked. More Tylenol? No. It will pass. The general brushed off his silk suit, then snatched up the teeth. I shall do this myself. He held up one of the teeth and smiled. Dinosaur teeth, ha. Those foolish mortals don't even know when they have dragon teeth in their possession. And not just any dragon teeth. These come from the ancient Cyberus herself. They shall do nicely. He planted them in the dirt, 12 in all. Then he scooped up the watering can. He sprinkled the soil with red liquid, tossed the can away, and held his arms out wide. Rise. The dirt trembled. A single, skeletal hand shot out of the ground, grasping at the air. The general looked up at the balcony. Quickly, do you have the scent? Yes, Lord, one of the snake ladies said. She took out a sash of silvery fabric, like the kind the hunters wore. Excellent, the general said. Once my warriors catch its scent, they will pursue its owner relentlessly. Nothing can stop them, no weapons known to half-blood or hunter. They will tear the hunters and their allies to shreds. Toss it here. As he finished, skeletons erupted from the ground. There were 12 of them, one for each tooth the general had planted. They were nothing like Halloween skeletons. These were growing flesh. They turned into men, but men with dull gray skin, yellow eyes, and modern clothes, gray muscle shirts, camo pants, and combat boots. Their flesh was transparent and their bones shimmered underneath, like X-ray images. One of them looked straight at Percy, freezing the boy his place as he realized that the cap of invisibility wouldn't fool it. The snake lady released the scarf and it fluttered down toward the general's hand. Percy knew if the general gave it to the warriors, they would hunt Zoe and the others until they were extinct. He ran and jumped up, plowing into the warriors and snatching the scarf out of the air. What's this? The general bellowed. Percy landed at the feet of a skeleton warrior, who hissed. An intruder, the general growled. One cloaked in darkness. Seal the doors. Percy sprinted for the exit but heard a ripping sound and realized the skeleton warrior had taken a chunk out of his sleeve. Ignoring it, he had just reached the doors when the general's energy blasted him away from the door. Percy slammed into the wall and his invisibility cap fell down, making him visible to everyone. Luke snarled at him. Seize him. 2 mortal guards moved toward the son of Poseidon, but then Naruto showed up. He grabbed the rifle of one of the guard and pulled the man with the gun. He then flung him against another, knocking both of them out. Need help, Percy? Naruto said. He brought his hand up, palm facing forward as the bullet fired by remaining guard stopped in midair and fell to the ground. He then used his free hand to grab 3 shuriken from his pouch and tossed them toward the general and skeleton warriors. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu 3 shuriken turned 3000 and rained down toward their targets. The general caught the shuriken that had come too close to his body in his hands and flared his power to destroy the remaining ones. This won't work on me, boy, he said, crushing the shuriken with his bare fist. Then maybe, this will. Naruto was behind the general with a blue spinning sphere rotating on his palm. Rasengan. He slammed the blue ball down into his back. The Rasengan exploded, literally destroying the marble floor. In the blink of an eye, Naruto appeared next to Percy. We have to go, Percy. I don't think it will hold them much long, he said. Percy glanced back. To his horror, the skeleton warriors were reforming, picking their own body. Naruto, they have my scent, he said in panic. No, they haven't, Naruto said, holding the fabric that the skeleton warrior had ripped out of his sleeve. How? A ninja never reveals his secrets. He grabbed Percy's shoulder and body flickered out of there. One guard walked over to the general and bent down. Sir, are you alright? He asked, trying to be as polite as possible. The general grabbed him by his neck and tossed him over the side. He cursed something in ancient Greek and slowly got to his feet. He lowered his hands and watched his golden blood itcher slowly drop onto the floor. General Thorne said. I underestimate that boy, he said. Everyone shivered at the tone of his voice and his dark aura. What is his name? Naruto Uzumaki, Luke answered. He is from the elemental nations. The general's eyes widened slightly just a brief second. We need to deal with that boy before he creates any problem for us. He opened his hand and looked at the tiny piece of orange fabric that he had managed to rip out of the boy's coat. He tossed it at a skeleton warrior. One skeleton warrior caught the piece of cloth. He held it up to his nose and sniffed the scent before handing it around to his friends. "Finish him," the general said. Once they appeared in the Air and Space Museum, Naruto let go of Percy's shoulder. The son of Poseidon suddenly felt dizzy and before he knew it, fell to the ground. "Ah, you're feeling the side effects of the body flicker. Don't worry, it's just for a bit," Naruto said. "Anyway, I gotta go, so see you later." "We are recovering," Percy looked up but Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Sighing, he got up and walked toward the admissions area. The main part of the museum was one huge room with rockets and airplanes hanging from the ceiling. 3 levels of balconies curled around so anyone could look at the exhibits from all different heights. The place wasn't crowded, just a few families and a couple of tour groups of kids. Percy looked around to find Thalia and Grover and the hunters. He literally ran into, Thalia. He was barreling up the ramp to the top floor balcony and slammed into her, knocking her into an Apollo space capsule. Grover yelped in surprise. The hunters had arrows notched, aimed at Percy's chest before he could regain his balance. They finally realized who he was as Zoe said Jackson. "Percy?" Grover said. "Thank goodness. Where have you been?" Thalia glared at Percy, angrily demanding some explanation. Percy said, "Luke, he's here." Anger in Thalia's eyes immediately melted. She put her hand on her silver bracelet. "Where?" Percy told them everything that had happened in the Natural History Museum. "The general is here." Zoe looked stunned. "That is impossible. You lie." "Why would I lie?" "Ask Naruto, if you don't believe me. He was also there." "Stop lying. Uzumaki is with us the whole time," Phoebe said and she moved aside. Percy just stood staring at Naruto, who was standing behind Phoebe, in disbelief. "So you met Boss," Naruto said, calmly in bored tone. "Boss?" Percy asked. "He's taking about me, Percy." Percy moved suddenly to the side, like a frightened horse. His green eyes widened as he stared back at another Naruto, his mouth dropping open in an oafish gape of surprise. Thalia, Grover and the hunters were not much better than him. They stared back and forth between both Naruto. Naruto, who was behind them, waved at them before vanishing in puffs of smoke. "That was my clone," Naruto said to clear up confusion. "You can clone yourself?" Bianca asked. "Yes." Naruto said, smiling. "I can make 1,000. "Oh, great. Just great. A boy who can make thousands of himself," Zoe muttered under her breath. 1,000 clones, Percy thought. Just what he could do with 1,000 clones of himself. Naruto said, "Anyway, Percy is telling the truth about the general and there were also the skeleton warriors." "What?" Thalia shouted. "How many?" 12, Percy said when he finally came out of his daydream and understood what they were talking about. "And that's not all. That guy, the general, he said he was sending something, a playmate, to distract you over here. A monster." Zoe took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. "If Percy is telling the truth," she said, "we have no time to argue, we must leave now." "What is this weird smell?" Naruto asked as he sniffed the air. Grover's eyes widened as he took in the scent. "Everyone move." Phoebe, who was looking up, shouted. 7 teenagers moved out of the way as a shadow covered them and a roar hit their ears. Landing in place where they used to be was a lion, large enough to be a pickup truck. Its fur nearly matched Naruto's blonde hair but glistened and gave off a more molten gold appearance as its claws shined and looked silver. Gleaming fangs were exposed and dripping with saliva. Grover gasped. "The Nemean lion." The lion let out a loud roar. Naruto quickly tossed some shuriken at the lion aimed at his head. To his shock, the shuriken bounced off the large cat's fur like it was nothing. "Damn." He pulled out a kunai, wrapped an explosive tag around the handle, and threw it toward the big cat. The kunai landed right beneath the lion's forepaws. The lion looked down just as the explosive tag detonated, making it roar in pain at being blinded. Naruto jumped up and landed beside Zoe. "Any suggestion?" he asked. "Yes," Zoe said. "Try to keep it distracted." "Well, I can do that." Naruto ran towards the monster. He leaped up and delivered a powerful punch straight to the lion's face, hard enough to send him flying back several feet through the air. "Wow," Grover said. "Focus on your work, Grover," Thalia shouted. "Clear the area." "Sorry." The hunters rained down hundreds of arrows within seconds on the beast. However, not a single arrow was able to pierce his fur. Roaring angrily, the lion got to his feet and began making his way toward the hunters, crushing the arrows beneath his massive paws. "Naruto, use Kusanagi. She can cut through almost anything," Hagoromo said. "I almost forgot about her, thanks for reminding me, old man." Naruto focused his chakra in the snake tattoos covering his wrist. The snake came back to life and crawled toward the open palm of his hand. He closed his hand. The snake hissed in agony before transforming into the legendary blade Kusanagi. He instantly jumped out of the way to avoid being crushed under the massive paw of the lion. Gripping the handle of Kusanagi tightly, he raced forward. His heterochromia eyes sparkled before he disappeared in a burst of speed. He slashed with his sword. Sword of Kusanagi was truly the sword of legend, revered to be able to cut through almost anything as she easily pierced through the creature's skin. The lion roared in pain, tried to rake him with his claws. He had no choice but to jump back. Naruto channeled his wind chakra through Kusanagi, sharpening the blade. He raised a sword above his head, ready to stab in the lion's head. Just then, a dark green blob of toxic acid came out of nowhere and hit him. "Whew. That almost hit me," Naruto said, black Tomo spinning rapidly in his blood-red eyes. Where he'd been standing just a moment before, he saw a hissing, melting black spot growing. Glad I swapped places with a shuriken. He closed his eyes to deactivate the dual Dojutsu and then stood up from his crouching position. "This," Grover said, his trembling voice betraying his fear, "is not good." Another monster had come to aid of the lion. It was a huge and scaly lizard-like monster with long necks and 9 heads to match. It had many rows of razor-sharp teeth, its hands were clawed, had a tail. Percy recognized it immediately. He had fought it before. "Hydra," he said. "We can't fight with both," Bianca said, her voice shaking. "Yes, we can," Naruto said, landing beside her. "I'll take care of the lizard. The 6 of you, deal with the big cat and kill him before he can harm others. But only your weapon is better suited to fight with him," Phoebe said. Naruto said, "He is weak now." His pointed at the lion, who was trying to stand steady on his feet. "Kusanagi's poison has entered his bloodstream." He charged toward the Hydra. "Just don't cut off the heads." Thalia yelled, "2 more will just grow back for each one you cut off." Naruto jumped over the railing and landed on top of one Hydra's head, only other heads to try to bite him off. With perfect control of his body, he jumped on top of a second head and shoved the sword deeper into its skull. The head was racked in pain. The Nemean lion roared. Thalia stepped into his path, holding up Aegis, and the lion recoiled. "Roar." "Hi-ya," Thalia said. "Back." The lion growled and clawed the air, but it retreated as if the shield were a blazing fire. He crawled backward slowly, his muscles tense, ready to pounce. Percy saw it. "Hey." He charged the beast and slashed with Riptide, a good strike, but the blade just clanged against his fur in a burst of sparks. "Oh, come on." Naruto's sword easily cut through his fur, but mine didn't even give him a scratch. The lion raked him with his claws, ripping off a chunk of his coat and pushing him against the railing. He sprang at him, 1,000 pounds of monster, giving the son of the sea god no choice but to turn and jump. However, soon, he realized that jumping off the railing, which was so far off the ground, was a worse choice to save your life. Naruto grabbed Percy midair before kicking the lion away, who had jumped after Percy. He safely put him on the wing of an old-fashioned silver airplane and then puffed out of existence. "Flown," Percy thought. The lion jumped onto the aircraft, which pitched and almost spilled Percy to the floor, 3 stories below. The lion took a few steps toward Percy, and the cords holding the plane began to groan. Percy jumped onto a weird-looking spacecraft with blades like a helicopter. He looked up and saw the lion roar inside its maw, a pink tongue and throat. His mouth, he thought. He turned toward the hunters. "Zo. Target the mouth." The hunter already had an arrow on her bow. Weakened by the poison, the lion suddenly slipped and fell down onto the spaceship. An arrow zipped past him, missing completely. He slowly stood up and growled at Percy. "Shit," Percy cursed. He jumped from the spaceship onto the top of a floor exhibit, a huge model of the Earth. Naruto jumped onto the neck of Hydra's one head and swung himself, so he was on the back of it and shimmied up to the top as quickly as possible. The other heads froze as they tried to figure out how to bite him without biting itself, allowing him to get to the top without resistance. Once he was there, he pulled his fist back and punched the Hydra directly in the eye, knocking that head out cold. "4 down, 5 to go," he said to himself as he landed on the ground. He outstretched his palm and Kusanagi came flying back to him. "This is taking too much time." Naruto rolled out of the way as soon as one head dove at him with its mouth wide open. He dodged again, this time avoiding another head. Deciding to make some distractions, he made a hand seal, and 2 clones popped into existence. While his clone distracted the monster, Naruto jumped onto the head and used it as a stepping stone to reach the ceiling of the museum. He hung upside down over the Hydra, his feet sticking to the ceiling. Naruto gave a signal to his clones. The clones moved back away from the Hydra and slammed their both hands onto the ground. Several golden chakra chains shot out of the ground around the Hydra and dug deep into its flesh. The monster roared over and over as it struggled to free itself from the chains. But it was all in vain, the chains didn't even budge, no matter what it did. "Time to end this in a lightning style," Naruto said. Thalia jabbed at the beast and backed up. The lion pressed her. "Percy," she called, "whatever you're going to do." The lion roared and swatted her like a cat toy, sending her flying into the side of a Titan rocket. Her head hit the metal and she slid to the floor. "Hey." Percy yelled at the lion. He was too far away to strike, so he hurled Riptide like a throwing knife. It bounced off the lion's side, but that was enough to get the monster's attention. The lion turned toward him and snarled. Percy charged, which was the only way to get close to the beast, and as the lion leaped to intercept him, he chucked a space food pouch into its maw, a chunk of cellophane-wrapped freeze-dried strawberry parfait. The lion's eyes got wide, and he gagged like a cat with a hairball. "So, get ready," Percy yelled. The beast choked down the space food packet and looked at Percy with pure hate. He opened his mouth and roared. This time, Percy shoved an ice cream sandwich in his throat. The lion's eyes bugged, and he backed away from him. Percy saw this chance and yelled, "Now." Immediately, 6 arrows pierced the lion's maw. The lion reared back onto his hind legs from the strike before falling forward. Grover knelt at Thalia's side and helped her up. She seemed okay, just a little dazed. The hunters dropped from the balcony and landed next to Percy. "So-eyed Percy. That was an interesting strategy." "Hey, it worked." She didn't argue. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker. The sound of 100 wings flapping filled the air. "What's going on?" Thalia asked. "Look up," Bianca said, pointing at the ceiling. Naruto was standing upside down on the ceiling with red lightning dancing around his body and sword. Bringing his weapon toward the Hydra, he came down like a massive lightning bolt comes from the sky down, illuminating the museum with red light and sending sparks across everywhere. The Hydra roared and writhed in pain as a high-voltage jolt of electricity coursed through its body. Large cracks formed all over its body, and it began to disintegrate slowly into golden dust, leaving nothing but a smoking hot crater. "Can you do that?" Grover asked, wide eyes after watching such a large-scale lightning attack. "I don't know," the daughter of Zeus said, unsure. She had never seen lightning in such unique color before. Percy saw how much destruction Naruto caused in one attack. Burns and scratch marks on the once smooth flooring, a large smoking crater where the lightning attack had hit, and small burned pieces of planes, perhaps only things had left. He had literally destroyed the one portion of the museum. "Hope the museum has insurance," he murmured. "Hey. Your lion is melting." Percy spun around and thrust his sword forward, but Naruto grabbed the tip of the blade with his bare hand. "Whoa. Just take it easy, Percy," he said. "Naruto?" Percy breathed a sigh of relief when he realized it was Naruto. "Please, don't do that again." "Don't do what?" "Never mind." Percy looked toward the beast they slew. Naruto was right, the lion seemed to be melting until there was nothing left but its glittering fur coat, and even that seemed to be shrinking in the size of a normal lion's pelt. "Take it, Zoe told me." Percy stared at her. "What, the lion's fur? Isn't that, like, an animal rights violation or something?" "It is a spoil of war," Zoe said. "It is rightly thine. You killed it." She shook her head. "I think thy ice cream sandwich did that." "Fair is fair, Percy Jackson. Take the fur." Percy lifted it up, which it was surprisingly light. The fur was smooth and soft. Then the pelt shifted and changed into a coat of full-length golden brown duster. "Not exactly my style," he murmured. "That's unfair," Naruto said. Stabbing the sword into the floor, he folded his arm. "You got a coat, but I got nothing in return." Naruto," Grover said, "look down at your sword." Naruto looked down. He saw a black aura oozing out of the Kusanagi's blade and slowly eating the floor. Eventually, it created a small hole in it. "Sweet, my sword got an upgrade," he said. Naruto pulled the sword free and gave some practice swings in the confined space. Then Kusanagi transformed into her white snake form and melted back into his skin. He turned and rubbed back of his head when he saw the damage he did to the museum. He said, "I think I've overdone it a bit." Bianca sent him a look of utter disbelief. "You think," she said. "Yeah," Naruto replied. He cupped his hand and closed the eyes. "We have to get out of here now," Grover said. "The security guards won't stay confused for long." It was strange that the guards hadn't rushed forward to arrest them. They were scrambling in all directions except theirs, like they were madly searching for something. A few were running into the walls or each other. Percy noticed for the first time. "You did that?" he asked Grover. Grover nodded, looking a little embarrassed. "A minor confusion song. I played some Barry Manilow. It works every time. But it'll only last a few seconds." "Uzumaki, what are you doing?" Phoebe asked. "Praying," Naruto said, his eyes still closed. A thick unnatural mist curled over the museum and grew into a thick fog. When it cleared, all quest takers saw everything had been restored back to their original state. Floor had been repaired, all exhibits were on their rightful places in their perfect condition, and there was no sign of fighting. "Thanks Mom," Naruto said. "We have to go now," Zoe said. "Look." Through the glass walls of the museum, they could see a group of men walking across the lawn. Gray men in gray camouflage outfits. "The skeleton warriors," Percy said. Naruto made a quick hand sign and a single shadow clone popped up. "Go and distract them." The clone gave a salute to his creator and body flickered out of there to do his jobs. Naruto looked at Zoe. So, what's the plan? He asked. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If yes, then make sure to drop 3 red hearts to show your love. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.